And so welcome to the class. This is for Carlson Fundamentals. And I will be sharing my screen mostly. Um, but we may from time to time ask you to, to share your screen so we can work on that, take a look at that stuff. So it's just basically hitting the share button, choosing the screen and allowing it to go. So I'm gonna, let's see, I'll pull this over here and I'm going to pop over into, there's my Dropbox. And let's see, files for class there, civil, fundamentals, there we go. And let me switch over here to the Windows side of the world. So I'm actually running this on a Macintosh computer, so that's why we got one slightly different thing. So Carlson projects, and I'll make let me do this over on this side. Let's see, Carlson projects. And make a new folder here, call it 2026 0409. Fundamentals class, and there we go. And now I'm going to take these two things, put them right here. And then I'll put the user guide here. We'll pump this up. Let me bring that across to this screen, and there we go. All right, so we'll be back. I'll be popping back and forth on the screen. So now, first of all, did everybody get a everybody got the materials that they
Yeah,
need?
yes, sir. I have it printed out.
Okay. So did anybody not? Did anybody need trouble getting the software, getting the user's guide and the data sets, the files that we're going to be using? Anybody need any assistance with that? Everybody good?
I think I'm good.
Okay. All righty. Now let me pop that back down. There we go. Now I can see who's, yep. Oh, hey, it was covered up. All right. So, so like I said, the manual is what we're going to be using, and you see it's once you're into the table of contents, for instance, you can click on these things, go back to the table of contents, you can jump over to these different things from the table of contents. It's all hyperlinked. And here's the way everything works. A lot of introductory stuff up front. And then, and again, here you can see this little blurb about what I've done, even though this says over 30 years experience, it's now over 40 years experience. So I needed to really kind of update the material. But the important thing about that is not my brag sheet, but it's to make sure that you have access here to this, to my email address. You've also got that from the emails that I have sent you for the class. And the important thing is to remember that when you're, let's say you go back and, 6 weeks from now, you're working on a project and you go, oh man, I know we did that in class, but I really kind of don't remember, pop me an email, ask me these questions because once you've signed up and become a customer of ImSoft, you now have access to us as a technical support resource. You also have access to Carlson, and it's free of charge, and with either route, it doesn't cost you anything, and you can get things answered. The slight difference between my support and Carlson's support is that one, I'm an engineer, I'm a designer, and a surveyor, and I've done this stuff for 40 years. And so I know all of those ins and outs from that side of the picture. Carlson is the developer of the software, so they know all the nuances of the actual technical stuff of what's going on under the hood. Now, they're also, you know, they have engineers and surveyors and all that as part of their staff as well. And they're very, very good. And they usually get back to it. But also the fact that they're supporting customers all over the globe. And sometimes it takes a day or two for them to get back to you, but they're really no later than a day or two. And they're really responsive. So use that. But also, if it's something that we've done in class, or if there's something even if we didn't go over it in class and you just wanted to ask a question, can Carlson do this? Can Carlson, and send me an email, we can reply if we need to, we can set up a little individual Zoom session and can go over something, it takes a little bit of time. So, a half hour here, an hour here, that kind of stuff is no problem. One of the things that we also offer, if anybody ever has the need, is I've had some clients before do this, and it's worked out fairly well, that they'll get a big project they're working on. They want to put it all here. They don't feel quite comfortable with it, or maybe they've got too much other stuff going on, and they basically essentially would hire us, which means me, because the other part of this operation of ImSoft is all administrative and sales and all of that, and I'm the technical side of it. But they would hire us as a consultant. So if it's a big project and you've got some funding in the project that you've built in for sub-consultants, I've worked on a project up in Buffalo for a design studio up there that was doing carriage homes, big exclusive right over across the little ravine from the Buffalo Bills football stadium, and it's all very, high-end stuff, and they wanted some real um, help on that, and they hired us. I worked on that for I'm gonna say 4 months, just basically as an employee of that company. Now it's not, that wasn't 4 months of 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I would work on it and work on other things as well, because I do have other work that I'm doing. So, but that's available if you ever need to do that on that kind of stuff. So it's a resource for you to keep in mind. Okay. Um, and there's you can see how the manual is organized here. Again, a little about this and about how the guide is organized and structured, and just little things. If you see this icon, that means it's an IntelliCAD type of feature, and this is an AutoCAD type feature that maybe is exclusive to those two platforms. Nothing is missing from either side. It just may be a slight difference in what you see in the different versions. These are all very self-explanatory. You'll see when you look at the text later on how these text indicators work, with these little arrows and all that. No need to even bother reading any of that kind of stuff. But here's one thing to uh, do pay attention to is there are certain things in the software that are, hey, here's a little trick, here's a neat idea, or here's something that's important. Take note about this so that you're aware of that, because sometimes it's things that are not necessarily very obvious, but they're very key to what you're doing. Now, this other part on the next page here about Carlson and in general how it works. Okay, I'm not going to read that to you, but what this is basically saying is the way this works is that Carlson software is a series of commands and routines that that runs runs inside, or you're working on inside of a drawing file, a three-dimensional drawing file. Doesn't have to be 3D, but that's what we're after, so we can model surfaces and that sort of thing. Um, because a lot of times you can, like a surveyor, for instance, if he's just doing boundary work and doing plats and doesn't need to build surfaces, there's no need to make it into 3D. So that's all done. But it's inside of a drawing file that depends on a CAD system that underlies the Carlson side. So there's a CAD system or a CAD engine that's running underneath, and the Carlson is a series of commands that's going to take input from us as users. We're construction professionals, or we're surveyors, or we're engineers, and we know, for instance, when we put in a roadway alignment, we know what a tangent is, and a tangent goes into a spiral transition into a full-on circular arc, and then comes back out of the circle with the spiral transition back to the tangent section. We call them that. The CAD system doesn't know I mean, it knows what tangency is in terms of something being tangent, but it doesn't think in engineering terms, because the CAD system doesn't care if you're drawing roads, if you're drawing a building layout, if you're drawing a grading design, or if you're drawing, circuit boards or floor plans, or, uh, you know, dress patterns. It doesn't matter. It's just a drawing program, and that's the intelligence that it has. It has nothing more than that. So Carlson is bringing this industry knowledge on top of the generic type drawing program. And whereas you can do a lot of things, in fact, everything that you can do in Carlson, you can do using plain old CAD commands, plain old AutoCAD or IntelliCAD commands. But it takes a lot of extra work to do that. You're not able to, think of it in terms of engineering. So what Carlson's going to do is it's going to take, all right, so it knows, or that you want to say make a roadway alignment. All right, so you need to have in the drawing, you need to have, a piece of straight road, and let's simplify it and take the spirals out. You got a straight road, then you've got a curve that comes off of that tangent to that, and then it goes into a straight piece after the curve, and it connects all that stuff together. Well, the CAD system just needs to know it's got to draw a line and an arc and a line and do all that kind of thing together. But we're thinking in terms of, we're going to start here, we're going to go to a PC, and we've got a PI, our point of intersection, and we come back out to the PT, the point of tangency, and so we think in those terms. So what Carlson's going to do is essentially this: it's going to be the traffic cop, or the translator between us with our engineering type knowledge and the underlying CAD system, uh, with its I'm going to draw pretty stick figures type knowledge. And so Carlson gathers up information for us, and then it turns around and gives it to the CAD system in the language it's going to understand. So that's the way that this whole thing works. It's just that little back and forth. Okay, so nothing uh, more than that. Now we're going to talk about here after we're going to take a break here in just a few minutes, so you can get another cup of coffee and answer a phone call or two. But when we this organizing your work, that's basically showing, we'll talk through all this kind of stuff. I'll leave this for you in here to read on your own, is how it's organized into different modules. Um, except for you're on the takeoff R10 side, you're going to be running a separate standalone, which is essentially the construction module that you'll see from the modular side. It's all rolled into one thing as well. So we'll talk about that very briefly. And then this directory structure, and that's where all of these files get stored. We'll touch on that as well, because there's different models on how that gets done and as to where things get placed. Like, if you're if you can, look at this, we see that here is on line 10, this CRD, that is a coordinate file. And it is right now under this particular model, it is set to go in whatever my project is. That's just a placeholder in this structure here, but I create it on the computer, and then it makes a folder called data, and then under there's a a folder called points, and that's where my coordinate file is going to go by default. Okay, they're just locations on the system. Okay. And then we'll talk about this menu structure here is general versus modular menus. Now, what that means is the modular menus are the extra menus beyond these basics that you see right here: file, edit, view, draw, inquiry, settings, and points. Okay, those. And then also, window and help, that's just part of your system interface. So file, edit, view, draw, inquiry, settings, and points. Those are menus that are common across the board, whether you've got Carlson Civil, Carlson Survey, Carlson Construction, Carlson Surface Mining, Underground Mining, Point Cloud. All of those different modular products all have these same commands in them. And the takeoff R10, I believe, also follows that convention. We'll take a look at it and see. I'm not sure which version I've got, but we'll load it up and take a quick look. So all of these, and it's all that this section of the book is talking about now, is these general menus, and you'll see them down here. There's file, edit, draw, inquiry, settings, point. There's also, I think I missed there's also one called view. It says file, edit. Yeah, I missed talking about it. Anyway, they're just a couple of sentences to tell you what each of those menus covers. It's not going to go through each of the commands on those menus here. There's another spot for that. But then once you're past the points menu, we're going to start picking up these module specific menus. So you're going to see things if you're running Carlson Survey, for instance, after the points menu, you have a survey menu followed by a COGO, followed by centerline, area layout, annotate, surface. Civil, you're going to have 3D data, surface, SiteNet, centerline, profile, sections, roads, etc., etc. Some of these are the same, like area layout, annotate, surface, and surface. So they're the same. Some of the modules will have those same types of things. However, some modules, like the civil module, has more options and commands under the surface menu than, say, the survey module does. There's some design tools that are sort of embedded in the different modules back and forth. In the hydrology module, notice it also has a surface menu as well, but it doesn't have nearly the design stuff because all you're really trying to do here is to model it, but it also adds flow regime like rainfall computation and things like that it's going to be able to track along those surfaces. So there's things, that are sort of specific to any given module. And you can see the different types, depending on which product you have. Here's the survey module, there's civil, hydrology, and down here's construction, where you've got elevate, surface, takeoff, roads, survey, annotate, and display. So a lot of these under the construction module, you've got some built-in survey commands, you got some built-in roadway design, you still got that annotate, which is also the same as up these others. And you've got elevate, surface, and takeoff. Takeoff being more the estimating types of things, surfaces more of the specific surface building. We'll talk about that because Dave, we'll talk about that approach because you guys are all in the construction side of the world. I just want you to understand that slightly different approach and there it all gets the same thing. You'll see when we get to it. It's not making much sense right now, but we'll talk about that and show you where those work out. So then you can see all these others. Up here's, the trenching module has a trench menu, and that's really the only additional menu it has. But when you switch, if you've got all of these installed, when you switch between the various modules, which is what you would have been doing right here with these commands, where you can switch, there's survey, there's civil, there's hydro, there's GIS, there's mining, geology, underground mining, surface mining, all those different things. When you switch between those, then these first general menus, file through points, all stay the same, but then you'll see these menus switch out of the interface depending on which module you happen to have loaded. Now, those of you who are only running one module, you'll never see that change. It'll be whatever you've got, like the civil. But if you've got all these different ones and you switch back and forth, that's where you'll see it, and that's how you know what you're running. And when we look at that as well, okay? So now, when we come back, we're going to go ahead and take our little 15-minute break here, and we'll come back at the top of the hour. But we're going to go ahead and start talking a little bit about some settings. We're going to get familiar with the interface, learn where some of these tools are, and then we're going to talk about these settings and how they are going to affect our work. Okay, and there's a whole lot of power in these things, and a lot of people they'll try to learn Carlson software, and this is sort of the neglected side of it, and they are just working everything as defaults. And whereas that will work, you'll get some kind of work out of it. But that's where there's a lot of nuance in these, and they change the behavior of how things work. And it's really important to understand those. And so we're going to really focus on that kind of stuff. We'll spend a lot of time on that, unfortunately. And also, unfortunately, it's really dry and dull. And so we'll try to make it as entertaining as possible. And then we're going to start later in the afternoon. We'll get into the points and point groups and how we're talking about that. And then a little bit of surface work, how that's working. Now back to the table of contents, what I wanted to show you about these. So that's all of this upfront stuff. And then we get into these important concepts. Here's points and point groups. And notice we've got some of these things that are in red text, and they're all exercises. This is where you can jump straight into, here's surface evaluation tools, 3D surface. Here, one, continue the same drawing and choose this command, set this up. Step 2, enable color elevation, blah, blah, blah. So it's going to just step you through all of those different commands, step by step as to running those particular commands and command sets. Our final concluding efforts tomorrow afternoon will be in this putting it all together workflow, which basically goes back to let's see, I didn't mean to jump to that, but yeah, this putting it all together workflow is basically taking a stockpile of material. We're going to create a surface, we'll compute some volumes, design a borrow pit out of the stockpile, merging the surfaces and putting in a little access road, some grading techniques, etc. Okay. Now, following those exercises is the other half, the back half of the book here is a command reference only for the general menus, file, edit, view, draw, inquiry settings, and points. And if you look at that here, for instance, let me go back let's look here, starting with this. Now, this is where you're going to see all of the different commands laid out for you, as opposed to the upfront stuff that says, just generally what these commands do. So here's your command reference. A lot of it's pulled from the help system. Some of it is expanded beyond what the help system has in it. Some is whittled down because the help system is really extensive on a particular topic. But the thing to recall about these are the commands on the different menus. There's a file, and you see certain ones are red. And the ones that are red mean nothing more than, over the years, I have found in my particular use, and it may not be the same for you, your mileage may vary, But these are the ones that I have found to be really, really helpful commands and things that are really worth noting. It's sort of like, highlighting a section in your textbook uh, before the test. Okay. And you'll also see things like this. The For instance, here on the edit menu, let me zoom this up a little bigger, is that see, there are some things that's true about all the menus, but the edit menu has some standard CAD editing tools like move, copy, trim, rotate. Those are all just plain old CAD tools, as well as these Carlson enhanced variations on these same types of things, like to draw a line or Carlson's draw a 2D polyline, for instance. So all of these commands that you're going to see here are going to be these Carlson enhanced variations or Carlson commands. And if you don't see it here, that means it's just a standard CAD tool and it's not described here, but it's in the help system of your computer. And you can see under erase, for instance, if I go to edit, erase, and there's a pull right, I come over here and I see select single last, but I look down here and I see the first thing I see is erase by layer. I don't see these others because they're just standard CAD commands. They're not documented here. But these are the ones that Carlson makes. Okay. And again, you can do all of these things using standard CAD commands, but these are the extra things that Carlson does. So that's there for your uh, general reference if you would prefer to use that instead of, say, the help system on the computer. But we'll talk about all those different things. So we'll come back and look at the interface and talk about these settings and get things moving ahead. Okay. All right, so I've flapped my gums for quite a while here now, and we're going to take our 15-minute break. So we're going to go ahead and get our full 15 minutes. I'm not going to cut you short that 5 minutes. So we'll come back at 5 minutes after the hour. And when we come back, so what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to stop my share. Wait a minute. Let me see if I can figure that out. Your screen share. Yeah. So, oh, here it is. All right. So I'm going to stop my share. So you'll see that go away. And so when I come back, I will reshare the screen. You'll see that pop up. Okay. So I'm going to, at this point now, also, I will pause our recording and I can find where it went. There it is. Yeah, they keep moving everything in this Zoom interface. Alrighty, I think we're good. All right. Okay, so what we'll do is let's go ahead and get some things started over in the software here. Let me put that guy up there. So go ahead and load up the software. And I'm going to load up two different versions here. Two different things. I'm going to run the IntelliCAD version, which will be this one coming up. And I think no, I no longer have the Carlson takeoff. Oh, yes, Doris.
I have a question. What it is the best basically interface from Paulson to do basically modeling for paving machines?
Pretty much any of them. Civil is going to be probably your most versatile, the civil module, because it's got a lot more of the grading commands in it. But you can do it with any of them. Really, it's just a matter of knowing how to go about doing it, which we're going to um, be doing. We're going to, learn about how to put in curbs and for parking lots and things like that, and then how to merge those different surfaces. And then once those surfaces are built, they can be transferred to machine control, so it can go out there and get those surfaces. You excavate down to your subgrade, and there's two different approaches to that. Okay. So there's two different approaches in terms of machine control or automated machine guidance, AMG, you might see it called sometimes. And one's what the older version of that is what we call, and some people still use it, it's certainly still valid, is what we call dial down, whereas you're given a surface which represents the top finished grade, like if it's a parking lot, it's the top of the asphalt. And when you're excavating it, you set on the dozer, you're going to give it a dial down to how thick the subgrade materials and the stone and everything underneath it is. So you'll give it a certain distance down that it needs to excavate further down, so that when you put that material back, the top is your finished grade. And that's the dial down method. But in doing this, and in particular with the takeoff R series, which you have, Dave, and the construction module, Matt and Bradley, those things can be generated for you automatically as two separate surfaces. You'll get the subgrade as well as the top finished surface, and you can generate each one of those separately, so you don't have to do a dial down, because the subgrades aren't going to necessarily be uniform all the time. So you can get those independently. You just have to keep track of which surfaces you're looking at and you're using, put that on your equipment, have it go out there and do the grading. And then when you come back, you can then do the checking once you're finished with your finished grade. So to answer that question, Doris, there's not any one that's, say, best. It's just a matter of, your
necessities.
Pardon?
Your necessities, basically.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
need?
So, yeah, just whatever your particular workflow may dictate as to which one you're using, and whichever software module you may have. If the only thing you have is Carlson Civil, that's the excellent product to do all that work with. And then and Civil can give you, just like the takeoff and construction module, there's a menu inside of Civil called SiteNet that can develop those subsurface separate subgrade surfaces and such, to get those out separately. Plus there's all kinds of tools you can, in the software here in Carlson, once you have a finished grade surface, you can go into this command called triangulation file utilities, and then you can subtract from that surface. And so give it the dial down amount, and it will create another surface for you that is the finished grade less what your subgrade materials are down to your subgrades. If it happens to be a uniform depth kind of thing, you can take that manipulation as well. So there's all kinds of ways of doing that. You can also using the Civil tools. Another great strength of Civil is the road design system that's built into it, which is also part of the takeoff R series that's built into that as well. And you also have access to it through construction as well, but it has a separate sort of program that's separate from generalized grading that deals with roadway construction. And it can also output each of those different surfaces, and not only the bottom of the excavation, the total subgrade, but each one of those individual layers you can generate as a surface. So you can check to make sure your layer thicknesses are correct and all that as you go on. So a lot of flexibility all over the place. And that's one thing you're going to find out about the Carlson software, and the fact that it's running inside a CAD program. there's no necessarily real correct way or the only way you can do stuff. You're going to find there's so many different ways to do it that sometimes that becomes confusing. Um, but like, you can draw a center line of a roadway, for instance, just using the CAD standard drawing tools. And then you just tell Carlson, hey, this is my center line. And so then Carlson uh, takes that drawn geometry and creates a centerline file that's separate from the drawing file. It holds the data for the alignment, and it sort of marries it to that part of your drawing file. So when you're working with that in the drawing file, Carlson knows it's an alignment, and it can, work on commands that deal with alignments and things like that. So again, any particular way um, is not a wrong way, but you're going to find through using it and learning as you go along some of the more, the optimized approaches. And that's what we're going to focus on here is what are our optimized approaches on getting to things. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Good question. Uh, Dave, I was hoping to be able to load up the R series. I actually no longer have it on my computer. Apparently, I needed some space and took it off, and it was several versions back, so I uninstalled it. I still have the icon there, but I don't need to even have that one anymore. I'll take it off. So I don't think, let's see, I'm in Carlson apps. Yeah, they're, yeah, I don't have it anymore. I apologize.
That's fine.
So anyway, so there it is. But I'll try to point out where it is. In fact, I'll have you when we start talking about those differences. I'm going to have you share your screen just so I can point out where certain things might come into play. So, all right. So I'm running. I've loaded up my Carlson. You may or may not get this start page. Does anybody not get this when you load it up, or does?
I don't get that one anymore. It's a weird one.
Okay. Now you can uh, turn that off. Right down here it says skip start page next time. If you don't like to use that, I kind of like it. It keeps, a running list of my recent files, and I can go back and forth to them. And it sort of gives me some different things here too. So, but that's a place to you can turn that on and off, and that's an IntelliCAD feature. That's not necessarily a Carlson feature, although Carlson certainly, um, you know, Carlson has developed it, but that's something you turn on and off, and it's slightly different in AutoCAD. You'd see the same type of thing, very similar, where you can look at these and you can pin them so that they always stay up, or it's in just a list of recents and they go away. You can choose a new drawing. You can open up a separate, an existing file. This drawings map, I'll show you this. Um, Let me see if I can find one. Let's go to this one and let's see if that comes up. So I'm opening up a file. Let's see. Come back to this. I wanted to use. Well, that's not working like it should. What this should do is when you click this drawings map, it should pop up like a web browser page, a little map that shows, and you can zoom into the area and you can find all the different drawings and projects where they're located in using state plane coordinates, and they're going to be available to pick from there. I don't know why they must have broken that. Let me see. Let me turn this back off. Let me try one other thought here. Go to the AutoCAD version and see if they've got it in there. And I'm back one version back. Let's see here. That's 2025. So when this start page comes up, see, it's very similar here, but I don't have the map interface here. All right. So it's not there. But let's go back to the 2025. Now, Dave, you may notice I've got an icon here that says Carlson Takeoff Suite with IntelliCAD. All that Takeoff Suite is, that's the construction module combined with trenching and geotech. So it has the three, so you can do drill hole, multi-strata surfaces and all that kind of stuff. But it uses the modular version. It's still not that standalone. So let me see if I've got here my drawings map. No, see, it's still looking for a. Maybe I have to do it with this map view. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Except, whoa, it died on me. All right, let's try this one. Drawings, map. Wow, let me turn that off and restart. All right, now there's a map view. That's Carlson Community. So if I choose map view, and then let's see, visible drawings. No, that's still not bringing that up correctly. That should be. See if I can find it here, Carlson. Huh, I'm not seeing. All right, so there's IntelliCAD manual. Wow. All right, let me pop this up and get inside it. Let me see what's going on here. A function of the Windows File Explorer for the drawings project folder. Yeah, see, that should have brought up a map that's sort of, and it may have something to do with my Windows configuration. Anyway, as you can tell, people don't necessarily use it all that much. Let me see if I can find it from open drawing. Yeah, see, remember you saw that thing come up that it had my list of files down here. I should have also seen this map view up here, and it shows you where any particular drawing is, as long as it's in a coordinate system that is registered, that's what's called geolocated. It'd be like a state plane coordinate system. Then you could zoom into an area and you could say, oh, I've got a project right next door to the one I'm working on. That's the one I want to open. So it's just another way of looking at that. So let's see, map satellite interface is okay, in the visible drawings, or listed georeference drawing would appear in the current map. Right, to be available, the use drawing database option in project data must be turned on. Ah, ha, ha. So drawing database option in Carlson configure project data folders. So what that needs to work is under project data folders.
There we go.
Use drawing. That is used, but I have to, I need a shared network database. Okay, so that's why I don't have the database. If I set, let's just call this one drawing database. All right. So that is set, it's on. And if I go back to my start page, yeah, error opening. See, yeah, see, it's this database that, well, okay, so it's going to take some setup. It used to just pop up. Um, so they've changed that a little bit. So it now requires that shared database, which I don't have configured. But anyway, as you can see, it's no particular big deal. So anyway, so let's just talk about the interface here a little bit. So if we're back here at the start page, or if you're not, you just come up with I'm going to start a new drawing, and I'm just going to take some defaults going through all of this stuff right here to finish. I'm using a drawing wizard. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I'm going to, for my new drawing name here, I'm going to hit my set button, and I'm going to navigate to the folder that I want. You can either choose the browse button, which puts you out in a standard Windows file navigation. You can use that one, or you can use Carlson's, which this is our class right here. And here's my data sets. So here's my files that are in here. And oh, let's see. I'm going to just call this one first example. We're just going to do some doodling. And I'm sitting in that folder. Here it is. I'm opening this up. It's set up here. I'll take the defaults. It's at a 20 scale. We'll talk about all these here in a minute. And we'll say next. And it's going to go through and then ask me for a coordinate file to use. Oh, okay. I got to go back and reset that. And it will say no import, and it'll come up down. Let me set that back. Settings, Carlson project data folders. Let me.
Sorry for asking. It's going a little bit more faster than I'm expecting doing at the same time as you.
Okay. So, all right, let's do this then. I'm going to close completely out of Carlson. All right, I'm going to load it up again. So whatever you use, oh wait, did I see that? Look at there, Dave. I did find it after all. There's my Carlson takeoff. R13 though. I thought I had
13.
it somewhere. There we go. All right, so when that comes up, I'm going to leave that running so we can pop back and forth and look at the differences between the two softwares, between the two versions here. So once this is up and going, I'll minimize it and we'll talk about the rest of it. So now yours probably came up like this, and I'm just going to hit the exit on that button, and I'll be in a new blank drawing. That's if you're using that R11. All right, now for the rest of us, back here, I need to make a note to move that back out to the different folder. Let me see if I can put that, let's go here. I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it up here in Carlson apps. So now I've got, crap. I moved the wrong one. Take off suite, goes back to there. Now R13. All right, so there now I have it. Okay, sorry about that. And now, so you either will see this or you'll go into something else. So Doris, on your end, do you see a start page?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so just right here on this left-hand side, choose the new drawing. And you're going to get a little dialogue up, and it's going to probably step you through a wizard. So you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so just hit next and then
Okay.
hit finish. Okay. So now it's going to come to this dialogue and it's going to ask you to name the file and set a couple of basic settings, which we're going to ignore.
But in my end, it says register with whistle and register to obtain change key or already have a change key.
Oh, okay. So
So
your version is not registered. You're getting that demo version stuff. Do you know if it's been registered? If it's
it has been registered. Probably I click in the run one. I do have two. Oh, I have 2026. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
2025, and probably that is the reason.
Yeah, whichever one is registered, and if not, I can help you with the registration real quick if you've got a license serial number.
Okay.
So, yeah, try the other one if that was the problem. Yeah, let me know if that works for you now.
I'm open it. Just I just click it and I'm waiting for the software to upload.
Okay. Yeah, let me know when you're there.
Yes. Let me see. Yeah, awesome. The same as you. Or kind of, but yes.
Okay. All right, so now once you're here and you see this where it's asking for a new drawing name,
Yes.
I'm going to hit that set button and I'm going to navigate to where I have stored my data sets that I downloaded from that link.
Oh, the class.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so go to that folder, and mine happens to be here, called my 2026-0409 Fundamentals Training, and I'm going to call this file first example. Okay, so now you've named a file. You should see a file name in up here.
I see foundation class, basically data sets. Should I have to click example one?
No, you're not opening an existing drawing. You're going to make a new drawing name. So when you
Oh, okay.
so go up into the field or just type a new name. That's why I called it first example.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that example one is an existing drawing that you don't want to open that one. You could, it wouldn't hurt, but all right, so we got a new drawing name. We've named it. In which case you can see it's all sitting here in my folder, and I called it first example DWG. So once you have that name, hit the next button at the bottom. And it's going to go through a couple of things, and then it will say, no, I keep getting that. All right, I'll set that here in a minute. And then you're going to get this where it says Startup Wizard data files, and it says data path and coordinate file. It lists a coordinate file name that is by default the same name as your drawing file. Doesn't have to be, but we're just going to take that by default and hit next. And it will finish up into a blank screen, and then you should see down here on the command line, it just says command.
Yes.
You got that? Okay, good. Now let me turn this back off. So maybe the next time I restart it, it won't give me that error. Okay, now your screen may or may not look, in fact, it won't look like mine exactly, but you're going to have basically a big drawing area in the middle with nothing in it. And you're going to have a series of menus across the top. That's file, edit, view, draw, inquiry, settings, and points. Those are the general menus. And then depending on which module you're in this case, I'm in survey. So I get the survey modular menus over this way. If I were to switch under settings, Carlson menus to civil, you see those 7 file, edit, view, draw, inquiry, settings, and points stayed the same, but now I've got stakeout, 3D data, surface, SiteNet, centerline, profile, sections, roads, etc. And this is actually new. They've added this to the 2026 version, this stakeout menu, which it's very interesting. They've borrowed these commands or taken them from the survey. It used to be you had to have survey to be able to get those. See, there's create points from entities, same things here, point from entities. So they've replicated that and given that. That's nice. I'm glad they've done that. I didn't realize they added that to it. But okay, so now we have this and we have a bunch of menus where we're going to be taking most of the class commands we're going to do from these menus, just so you know where they are. Now, for some shortcuts to that, I have a series of toolbars out here that are showing up, and I'll show you where they are and how to turn them on and off. And the ones that I have are based on my particular workflow, what I find important, because I have right here this one called layers. You see, if I hover over a toolbar, not the menu, and not the picture, if I'm doing this, let's see, I'm going to switch to the ribbon interface. So you could have something like this. It looks like this ribbon interface. And those are all fine. Those are, things that you can use. I don't use that interface because that loses me about 1.5 inches of screen territory that I want to use down here for more drawing area. So I don't generally use those, but that's a perfectly fine way to use and learn the software. The difference between these when you see this line of text across, these are the different panels in the ribbon. And the difference between these as opposed to these, which are our pull down menus, these menus tend to group things. Let me see how to set this more. Yeah, they're sort of organized by and categorized by a particular thing. Let's look at, say, under center line. So everything to do with center lines is right in here. If I were to look at it here under roads as my ribbon interface, then I've got, there's center line things here. That's that center line set of commands. I've also got profiles. You see how it's all grouped here together? But if I want to do it from the menus, I've got center line and I've got profiles. So two different menus here. And so this ribbon tends to do things from a workflow organization more so than a data type organization. So for instance, let's switch to survey. And so here's my basic file things. Here's some setup things, and I've got survey. And notice field to finish is big right here. I got data collector. So this is bringing in my main tools to generate my drawing. And then I've got things that work with deeds. And over here, I've got coordinate geometry commands. And here's some GIS commands. Whereas under survey, here's a lot of that stuff. There's draw field to finish. And then I've got a separate COGO menu and separate GIS menu. So it's just a slightly different organization. So I'm going to actually turn that off. I'm going to right click this area up in here and choose that. So you can switch to ribbon, or I'm going to right click beside it. I'm going to switch to menu bar because I want to recover that space. Okay, so what we have here in our interface is a drawing area, which is just blank right now. I have my properties toolbar or properties palette, it's called, docked over here on the right-hand side. And that is floatable. It can be resized and moved around, and it can be docked, or it can even be turned completely off. You may not see it. Okay. I use it so often that I almost always, I'm going to right click the mouse and get this little context menu, and I'm going to choose properties. And I'm going to get that, and I'm going to start dragging it over here, and I'm going to right click in this strip on the left and say dock to the left. And now it's docked, and you see right now how it disappears when I go off of it. That's because of this thing called auto hide. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to set this little icon under the X. I'm going to turn auto hide off because I want to leave that up and running all the time because I'm constantly looking at something. I'll click on it and select it, look over here at its properties and see if I need to change anything. So that's just the way I work. Again, you don't even have to have it up. You can float it. You can put it on a different monitor. You can dock it on the side, but that's where you're going to see it under here under properties. Okay, so that's what this is. These across the top that you see with the icons are a series of toolbars that I have up. I've got some horizontal, I've got some vertical on the left and right hand sides. So that's just a quick way to get to a particular command as an example. And if you want to see what toolbars, if you have any up on your screen, if you hover the mouse over that, there's a vertical line of dots. That's the grab spot for that toolbar. So if I take this toolbar here on the end, for instance, and grab that, I can drag that down here and put it here. I could drag it over on the side and it would turn into a vertical, on the side, or I could put it back up here at the top, which is where I like to have it. But if you hover over it, it tells you the name of the toolbar. So that's the inquiry toolbar. Over here's another one. I use this one all the time. It's called my polylines toolbar. And the reason I use that is right here's a good example. Right here is a command called I want to erase a polyline vertex. It says remove polyline vertex. And you can see the icon. And can you see my screen clearly enough, or do I need to make the icons bigger? Is everybody
I can see it.
everybody's good?
Probably a little bit bigger. At least for me, I'm
What
trying to see it.
I wouldn't mind if it was a little bit larger too, yeah.
All right, so let me set that. All right, I'm going to exit out of that. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to my display settings in Windows. I right click and choose display settings. And right here, I'm going to bump this up. So now my interface is a little bigger. It might clip a couple of things. Let me see. And this might make it easier for you to see things on my screen. Here's first example. Yeah, you can still see it. There's some things down below here that I can't really see all of that. There's a little bit more down there, but that's okay. I think that's enough. All right. So now up here, for instance, on this polylines toolbar, there's a command. You see the picture is a little pencil eraser hovering over this dot on the end of this line and arc. That's a polyline. There's another one here that says remove a polyline segment. Now that's, I used to have it color coded a little better. That used to be red on that segment with the eraser. So it's telling you you're either going to remove a point from a polyline or a segment from a polyline. So that's the remove polyline vertex. That's a command I use all the time. For instance, I'll draw a real quick one here. And say that, and if I wanted to remove one of these points, for instance, or multiples, I would remove that polyline segment. So I'm going to select this, and that gets rid of those segments. If I remove a polyline vertex, I choose the polyline, and now all I do is pick. I don't have to pick on it. I just pick near a particular one, and it goes away. Okay. So I use that command quite often, but here's why I use it from the toolbar in my production work. Is because remove polyline vertex. You can see that icon there. That command is under Edit, Polyline Utilities, remove polyline. It doesn't mean erase the polyline. It means remove parts of the polyline. And you can see right there is remove polyline vertex. So that took me 1, 2, 3, and then 4 mouse clicks to get down to that command. Or I could just choose it from there, and I'm at the command. Okay, so that's why I use those toolbars, because some of these commands are really buried kind of deeply. Either way you do those is fine. And you can even do this. If you notice under polyline utilities, let's use that same example, remove polyline vertex. Now look down. Oh, one thing I keep forgetting to do this. I have this. Now you can follow my mouse a little better. I'm sorry about that. I keep forgetting I have that. All right. So instead of, so if I come over here and let's see, polyline, edit, polyline utilities, remove polyline, and I'm going to hover right there. I'm not clicking it yet. Remove polyline vertex. Now look down here at the bottom of your screen called the status bar. It tells you what the command does, and it has a colon, and then it has RMVERTEX. So if you would rather, instead of using the toolbar or dig into the menus, once you're familiar with the commands and you know what it's called, you can simply type RMVERTEX, and it would run that command. Now, see, it's asking me to select a polyline to remove from. That was the very same thing as if I had done it from up here. All right, so any of those methods are possible. None of those is wrong. Now, there's also for that RMVERTEX, that's quite a lot to type. There's a thing here under settings called quick keys where you could type in, for instance, I've done it here for remove polyline vertex. You can see if I type RV, it's going to run this command called parentheses C colon RMVERTEX close parentheses. That was the very same command that got written. And you notice there's some things that say underscore period zoom to, there's different forms. Here's one called parentheses C colon ACAT underscore command space quote underscore period X bind close quote close parentheses. So these take the form of whether it's just like this, and that C does not stand for drive C, that stands for command. That is a Lisp command, a Lisp routine command, or not, it's no longer Lisp, it's part of their built-in stuff. These up here where it says ACAD command, those are standard AutoCAD commands. These others are Carlson commands. And some of these other things like this are not AutoCAD commands. And in this case, AutoCAD means IntelliCAD. These aren't the commands, but these are settings that work. So it's just a matter, if you get into really customizing it and you want to set up quick keys to type a command, a shortened version, RV would be shorter than RMVERTEX. Okay, so you can, you could do those later as you get. So if I down here at my command line now, if I type RV, you see it's going to be select polyline to remove from. So same command. Now the thing about the interface, if I were to type RMVERTEX, see there it is. Now I've got within this little pop-up, I can click on the help system and it tells you what it does and what pull down menu location, where it's located, the keyboard command, and you must have a polyline to work from. Okay. So all of those means or all of those methods are ways that you can interact with the software and tell it what you want to do. Now, again, we're going to be pulling most of our stuff from our menus, but here's what to notice about the menus. Notice that some of these commands, like if you look up in here in this part, these 4 commands here have little icons to the left of them. Some of them do not. Okay, now you're still seeing all this stuff down at the status line as to what it does and where it is. But some do have an icon, some do not. What the icon means is that those commands, and these are the 2 that I used quite often. There's also remove polyline arcs, but there's no icon. Remove duplicate polylines, again, no icon. What the icon means is that that command exists on a toolbar somewhere. It doesn't tell you which toolbar it's on, but it just tells you. So if you find yourself using a command over and over again, like remove polyline vertex, and you see it's got an icon, say, man, I really want to use that on the toolbar. So now you got to figure out what toolbar that's on and bring that toolbar up and place it in your interface, either at the top, the sides, or at the bottom. They can dock. And that's that polylines toolbar. Okay, so it doesn't tell you what command it's on, or it doesn't tell you what toolbar it's on, but it does tell you that it does exist on a toolbar. Okay, so there is a command, However, that will tell you what toolbar these commands are on. So let's keep that same example, RM vertex. So if I go up to my help system, and I come down here and I'm going to choose this item called command search. And that's going to bring this up. And you notice these are all kinds of different commands that are in here. All right, now you could scroll that down. I think you can, yes, you can sort by name. You can sort by the menu it's on. Just click these title bars up here. Or you can just type here and say, let's see if I just typed vertex. All right, so this has all the commands that have the word vertex in them, and there's remove polyline vertex right there. You see it's command number 2647, and it's on the edit menu, and it's on a submenu called remove polyline. It's available to all the different modules. There's what you would type, and there is the toolbar that it's on. So if we said triangulate, well, they're all on the same toolbar. But triangulate and contour is available under geotech, hydro, construction, civil, underground mining, survey, and field. And it's all typed by TRI. These are the different main menus, but this tells you the toolbar it's on. So if I just go back and just clear that and just look at all of them, you can see some are on toolbars, some are not. You see, there's some that are blank, so they're not on a particular toolbar. Those would be the ones in the menus that don't have an icon to the left of them. All right, but it does have a menu available. Like if you want to do this azimuth, annotate angle over distance under construction, under survey civil, and there's the command BAZI. Okay, but then there's also these different ones here that do the same thing that are on toolbars. All right, so that's a nice way to help you learn that interface is help menu, command search. And if you don't know, now this is in order of what you're likely to use. Here's your file commands and different layouts and such. Or you can just type part of it that you might know or what you're looking for. Center lines. And you just, type enough of it. You notice it now restricts what's shown here to just those commands that are available for center lines. Different modules, all modules have a center line command. It's under file, civil 3D. So if I look at my file civil 3D, for instance, there's my center line right there. It should have said import civil 3D. That's what I missed that main menu. So file import civil 3D, that's a sub menu under it. So that helped you try to find those commands if you're looking for them as well. You can also just go to help, Carlson manual, and then you could type in, let's see, remove vertex. And so there's your polyline. So, different commands that mention that particular item. Okay. So that's sort of a way to try to learn those out and what these toolbars are. And I'm going to show you how that's set up as well. Is there's two ways to get to that. Is one, if you have either if the ribbon's up or if you don't have any toolbars out or whatever, you should have some empty gray space to the right of some of that stuff, or even down here to the bottom below this one. When you do that, you're going to get a little pop-up menu, in which case you've got these different menus that you may or may not want to show. Okay, so, and I've got them all turned on. I don't have, if you've got a series of commands, for instance, under coordinate geometry that you never use these and you don't want to see them take up your space, you can turn those off by doing that. So right click, there's your menus, but now here's your show toolbar. And show toolbar, there are, in my particular installation, I've got Carlson toolbars, I've got CG survey toolbars, I've got IntelliCAD toolbars, and I have iCAD DGN toolbars. Now that stands for IntelliCAD, but running microstation files, DGN or design files, which is equivalent to an AutoCAD drawing file, but it's in a different format. And the IntelliCAD version of Carlson can work with those files directly without translating them in and out to DWG. So that's why you have those different ones. So the ones that I have here, if I say show toolbar Carlson, these are the ones that I have on. I've got Carlson menus, which is this one up here, which switches between the various modules. If you only have civil, for instance, you don't really need that one because you can't switch in and out of those other modules. I want the draw toolbar on, and that's this one right here. If I hover here, you see it says draw. I'm over that little dot, 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 and those are all the Carlson draw commands. I've also got one here to the left of it that also says draw, but that is my IntelliCAD draw menu. So it's a lot of the same commands, but some of them are slightly different. And I just have it there for illustration purposes. I don't really ever use it. But Carlson, I've got that one, the menus, the draw, entity properties, which are these things like the color, line type, line weights, and all that kind of thing where I can set. And that's a toolbar called entity properties. Now, it also has two important commands here. There's one here that says, this command here will bring up the layer control. And you would think that would be on the layers toolbar, but it's not. It's down here under these properties. The layers toolbar has these other things like isolate and restore, freeze and thaw, erase by layer, different kind of things that work with layers. So they're sort of mix and match and categorized as you might use them in your workflows. I've got grading, inquiry, layers, different things that I have on here. I'll show you another way where you can see what they all are. Now my CG survey, I don't have any of them actually on. Let me see here, go back to that. See, the ones that are checked are on. CG survey, none of them are checked because I don't use that subsystem. IntelliCAD, these are the only three that I have are draw, entity, snaps, and modify. This is the modify, standard CAD modify tools. My snaps are up here. And I've got that draw command over here. Let's see, there's a standard toolbar there, and that's IntelliCAD standard where you have things like new, open, save, publish, print preview, all these different things here. But I use the Carlson's standard, which has a lot of the same things, but I don't have the clear drawing. I'm not sure what that does. Does that erase everything maybe? So it's a little dangerous. And I've got a couple of other little things that may or may not be the same thing. So I'm going to turn that and back off. So those are the ones that I have. And another way of doing these, if you want to look under settings, and then here's toolbar setup, and that's going to pop this up. So instead of right clicking over here and choosing it from that menu, you can run it from here. And you can see this is a list that you don't have to keep right clicking and choose. When you do it the other way, you right click, you turn one on, it goes away. You have to right click, turn another one on, and it goes away. Do it from here, you can turn them all on that you want at one time. Now, the other things you can do, let's see, if I set my large buttons, that would have been another way. Yeah, see, that really brings us up big time, but that I don't have enough screen to really show it like that. So I'm going to turn those back off. You should be able to see them. It gives me enough room in the drawing. There we go. All right, so with this, you can see the ones that you turn on and off. Now over here, when I did it this way and I said toolbar and I had these different categories like Carlson and IntelliCAD. In this version, that's controlled by this pull down right here. It's easy to miss, but that sits for Carlson. If you want an IntelliCAD one, switch to IntelliCAD and it shows you which ones are on there. So here's the ones that I have for IntelliCAD. I would say you don't really need draw. You probably do want to have entity snaps and modify turned on. Now notice there's a lot of duplication here. There's inquiry, there's layer tools, there's entity properties, there's all those different types of things. Let me see what that one looks like. This is entity data, and that's create or edit entity data, copy the data, move it. Yeah, that's a real specialized one. I never have found a need for it, but that lets you assign sort of like linking it to a database. You can assign various data properties to it, okay? So back to this toolbar setup, and I'm going to leave it here for the Carlson. If I switch to IntelliCAD, again, draw, you can have it on if you want, but entity snaps and modify are the two that we're going to use a bit. Here's my snaps. Here is the modify, okay? If I switch back to Carlson, I'll show you the ones that I have on here as well. I've got Carlson menus. If you do not have multiple modules and switch in and out of the different modules, you don't need that one. I've got draw, which is this vertical panel. We use that quite a lot. And again, there are commands that are generally on the draw menu. It's how we create things, but there's also text and leaders and different things. So the leaders come out of the dimensioning tools. The text comes out of the text tool, which is also under like draw, text, blah, blah, blah. So that's on entity properties. That's this right up here where you set the color, the line type, the line weight, and plot style, I think. Let's see, we've got color. You can also turn on and off or freeze different layers. You've got, yeah, there's your color. There's your line type. And there's your line weight. And then this one, which is not active, that has to do with if you're using plot styles. We're not using plot styles with these, so it's grayed out. So those are ways that you can turn these on and off. So if I want to change from this layer 0, if I want to go to my existing layer, for instance, notice I've switched to that layer. It has this color and it has this color assignment. I can make things blue, for instance, and they'll stay on this existing layer, but the existing layer is set up to have a color of yellow. So if I change it to be by layer, it's whatever color I set that layer to be. So under existing, let's say instead of yellow, I'm going to click that yellow. I'm going to make it, say this sort of green color. So you see how that switched that around. Again, I can make these red. So whatever I draw is going to be that color specifically, even though it's on this layer. But I'm going to set this back to by layer. This is the way we, by far, we set everything up to be by layer so that everything works by layer. Now, Dave, the takeoff version of this, I'm going to let me see. I want to take my ribbon off. Let's see if I can. Yeah, you can have that minimize to tabs where it just brings up and you have to click it specifically and then it comes back. Okay, so that's one way of doing that. Or cycle through all. Just say cycle through all, but anyway, so to turn that one off though, I can't do that here. I don't have the same turn ribbon off, but I would come down here at my command line and type ribbon close. And now that goes away. So now I'm back to just these particular. So there's files. Now your settings is over here, which is typically further to the right, but file edit view draw inquiry settings and points. Okay, so your menus are in slightly different locations here. Let's see, under settings, toolbars, there's just the ones that are built into here. So I'll turn my standard on, show or hide. So if I turn that on, it's under show, settings, toolbars. Let's do, say, object snaps. Let's show those. So now I've got my object snaps is right here, and it's showing in that toolbar. So that's how you would control that interface with yours. And again, this is I don't get the hover capability here. All right, so, and there's the standard as file open, blah, blah, blah. And these are different ones. I may want to pull that down and then put this back up here on the bottom. There we go. It's a little more like what I'm used to seeing. So now, so you have for your entity snaps, there's where you can set the current layer. So you set whatever layer you're working on. You can do it from there. If you have the properties up and docked, you can do it from here too. Or set color and the actual, I can't switch it there. I'd have to switch it here. Okay. So you can play around with those and see what those particular commands are going to give you. Back to here, if I, let's see, we're talking about these particular ones. So there now is that, that's where I can set. And whatever I set here is going to control whatever else I draw at that point. That sets my current properties for things that I draw. So if I go on this existing, and if I'm going to go over here, I'm going to draw a 2D polyline. Come down here and just say, use the current drawing properties. I'll say, okay, and I'm going to draw this. And there is now that polyline that I drew. It's using that particular line type called by layer. When it says by layer, I would need to look at my layer definition over here for existing, and I see it's got a line type called dashed. Let's switch that to dashed 2, and you should see a smaller dash pattern. There it is. Okay. So this sets the current layer. So now if I'm going to come down here and put it on final, and if I do the same thing, draw a 2D polyline, see how it has a different appearance. And that's the way we sort of keep track of things visually as we look at the line styles and the colors. And if I click on one of those and select it, you're going to get some grips that show up and you can manipulate those grips. You can, move these around. You can convert that to an arc. Same thing with that one if you wanted, maybe make it something like that. All right, so by selecting an item, and I can just select it, and I'm going to just drag it with the mouse. After I'd selected it, I just grabbed a part of it and moved it with the mouse, hold the mouse key down and move it. But when you select it, look over here in the properties. That tells me that that object has a color of by layer. It is on layer final. But if I switch that and put it on existing, see what it did? Because the color is still by layer. The line type is by layer. All right, so that lets us rearrange, what we're looking at here. Let me, I want to turn on, yeah, my line weights are on. Okay, so that's how we're going to start to create our drawings. We're going to put certain things on certain layers, and we can control, you know, what they are. I can also draw a 2D polyline, and if I uncheck this use current, I don't have to go and switch to a different layer. I can simply pick from something in the drawing, see it found existing, or I can select and choose, let's choose sea storm, that doesn't make sense, sea storm exist. C typically means it's a civil design. If it were really exist, that should say V, but anyway, that's just naming convention. And then you could set the color, and it's either going to be by layer, which is 256, or you could give it a specific color. It would be just like changing the color up here to something specific instead of being a by layer characteristic. Now, the reason I'm going into all of that in terms of these colors and by layers and that sort of thing, particularly for you, Dave, is under takeoff. Under your settings, you have under configure, under these takeoff settings, you have this ability here to assign colors by target. And let's say existings, you want it to be green. Design, you want it to be, say, this cyan colored. Anything else other, maybe make it this gray looking color. And then if anything's got no elevation on it, it's red. So what this does, if you're using this, and this is only in the takeoff menu or on the construction module under the menu as well, and we'll talk about those after our lunch break. But if you do that, then once you have assigned certain elements to, in fact, let me, I'm going to open one of our files here just to show you. All right, so here's a big file. And it's got a lot of different things. And if I select this guy here, I look over in my properties, I see it's on a layer called V Topo Major. That's a major contour line. And that one would be V Topo Minor. I've got this one, which is under V Topo BKLN. That's a break line. All right, so there's all kinds of things. Here's V site parking ident. So that's a parking sign identification layer. So they're all on these different layers, and you see they're done by different colors and different line styles. But under takeoff, once you have identified certain things to be existing, so these are all existing contours, for instance. So if I go to my takeoff menu and I define my layers, and I notice those V, all of the V topos, let's see the break lines all and the contours as well. We'll take all of these, we'll move them over here to the existing category. And then I'm going to take, say, these buildings and power poles and stuff, and I'm going to move them to design. Okay, so now whoops, move. Okay, so now I've got some on design, some on existing, everything else is on other. I'm going to save that and exit. And now you see how the colors changed? Because everything that I said was existing shows up as green. Everything that I said was design showed up as, well, let me turn this one back off for just a minute. And then update. I don't see it's normally under the takeoff menu. It should say update colors. Let me see if it's here. Here's my checklist. Go back to this. Let's take these break lines and move them to other. We'll save and exit. All right, so now what is this? V building outline, and it's red. That was assigned color by elevation. Colors by target, automatic update. All right, the reason they're red is because they have 0 elevation, but I wanted that to be well, let's change these two. We'll give them an elevation of say 1300. Huh. I don't see where they've done it. Maybe view. Oh, there it is, update colors. So now you see these have elevation and they're under that color of blue because I set that to be blue. All my contours are green because that's existing. Everything else is this gray. And then I can also, if I come up here and turn on these takeoff display toolbar, that's where I can set, and this is when you can display the existing design or other. So if I turn off other and design, this is everything I'm going to use for existing. But turn that off and look just at design. These were the layers that were on design. Everything else is just unassigned. Okay, now the reason I'm pointing this out for you, Dave, is that when, let me put this up in here somewhere. Let's get it up there. Come on, get up there. Well, it's not wanting to jump. There we go. All right. So the reason I'm pointing this out, and I'm going to turn on design and other. So the system has gone through and assigned those different colors. They're all green. They're all either this blue or red because it has no elevation. And those are specific colors. So if I select this, I see that color is cyan. It doesn't matter that it's on V building outline, which has a different color, probably white. Look at my layers. V building outline. Let's open this up. V building outline is defined as white. So even though that is that color of that layer, because it is reacting to the fact that it was called a design element, it's going to take on that color. So the reason I point this out as a property and it's by layer as a color property is because now everything has a specific color. There's that 253. If I look at one of my contours, well, that was a break line. If I look at one of my contours, that's color green. Okay, and if you look at more than one thing at a time, you see it says it varies because there's more than one particular item there. But the reason I'm showing that to you is because this drawing came to us originally with everything assigned as a color to be by layer. Takeoff, if you use that color designation, which is real nice to be able to quickly see what's existing, what's designed, what's other, as well as this toggle on and off, turn off the existing, turn off the other, get the clutter out of your way, that's why they're doing that by color. And that may be how you do your work. But if you want to ever set that thing back, then you would simply select everything if it's all displayed, which it is. And up here where it says color, I'm going to set that for every item there. I'm going to set their color to be by layer. Okay. So now we're back to, there's the yellow and green and dashed. There's the white building outlines. So everything is now back to that by color. If I select, I look at the color, it's by layer. It's no longer color 253. But if I turn that back to update color by update colors for set elevations, then everything gets updated correctly. Okay, except I don't have the color turned on. Let's go back to also tell me which is on here. And now let's update that. Did I miss? Oh, I did miss that. Okay, there we go. There we go. So now, and the reason why we do that with those colors is I'm going to turn off existing and I'm going to turn off other. So this is everything that I have designated to be my design. But when I look at this, I can tell at a glance that it has an elevation of 0. I don't have to select it and look over here under my elevation field and see that that's 0. I don't have to look at this one and see what its elevation is. I know it has some elevation. So that's a real quick way when you're trying to take a drawing from somebody else and you need to elevate it. Let's say you get a PDF file
Just the grass itself. I mean, you still might get like that.
that has a bunch of contour lines in it.
It should be watertight.
If they're all at 0 elevation, then you can set those contour lines at their proper elevation and the color will change from red to the color of the category that it's on. So in that building, if I go to
Yeah.
elevate,
Yeah, when they come out,
elevation
water
to
table.
absolute, I'll set that one.
I don't know how to word that. I'll just say
Make it an elevation of say 1350. And once I finish the command, you see it takes on the color. It now has an elevation, so it's no longer red. All right, so it's a very nice and useful tool that's available to you on the Takeoff product.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Under construction.
All right. All right, I'll get that right over to you.
To the construction menu. Which let me find it here. I keep changing the icons on me. If I go to settings, Carlson configure Takeoff and SiteNet, and I have that same idea over here for these colors, but it doesn't work. So if I turn that on, oh yeah, I guess it does do it under construction. It doesn't do it under civil. So if I give this let me set layer for existing. Set layer for design. Okay, now I'll give that an elevation. And I can't just, if I change it here in the properties, just a CAD change, let's make that 100. And let's make this 150. All right, they didn't change, and I'd have to go back to take off, update colors for set elevation. Now, you see they have taken on the color as being existing in design. But see, it's a specific color. It's not a by layer designation anymore. I could switch it back, change its color to by layer, and now it matches the layer. So it's just a matter of how you want to keep track of it. And again, that's only available in, if I'm in civil, for instance, even though SiteNet said if I display design, turn design off, turn design back on. But notice there's no update colors here. You don't get that in civil, although you have some of the same commands. You can assign layers for existing, some for design, some for other, but you can't see the color definition. You have to be in construction or the takeoff product itself. All right, so now there's different color manipulation. And color for an entity is just one of its properties. You see, I can set a specific color. Let's make that one, this magenta. Okay, so, but it's still on my design layer, my layer designated as being something that's design. And then I can update my colors for design. And if they were 0, if this had, let's just make them both elevation 0. Okay, so now they're back and they're showing red because they have no elevation. Although if I display, I'm going to, where's my, display. Let's turn design off. Let's turn existing off, existing back on, design back on. So they still know that they belong to a particular category, either existing or design. But if I change their color, or change their elevation, and I'll go to elevate, change elevations to an absolute. I'll say okay, and we'll say 100. We'll pick that line. Now it says enter or select line work or text of elevation. 50. I'm sorry. Let's here to select the line itself. Wait a minute, I did something wrong here. Let's see. Elevate. Change elevation. Absolute. All right. Select the line work or text of elevation. We want to type E for enter. There we go. So 100 would be that one. Input another elevation. So let's say 150. Select this one. And then when I'm finished with the command, they'll automatically update to the proper color because they have elevation. This one has 100. This one has 150. Okay. So just some visual means of going back and forth that you have under construction and takeoff that you don't have under the other modules. But again, remember, color is just one means of helping you keep track in your mind. You're organizing what things are going to work. Now, if you're in civil, excuse me, I'm going to put these colors back to by layer. So now, excuse me, if you're in civil, see, I've already designated my existing layer is in a category called existing. My final layer is in a category called design. So I've got that categorization done. I've got my colors turned on, but let me see. Let me draw a couple of other things. And that's a 0. Let's change layers now to let's use this point elevation just for yucks. All right, so now if I go back and redesignate, I want to take from other, I'm going to put 0. I'm going to move it to existing. And I'm going to take that C storm exists. Now we'll leave that on other for now. We'll save this. And exit. And now if I want to make these correspond to those different categories, the way we do that in Civil is I would go to SiteNet and I would turn off these display other, display other layers. What's going on? This is in other. That should have, what was that? Oh, point elevation. I did the wrong one. All right, so my oh, I don't, all right, I see why. All right, so C storm exists. All right, so that, all right, so the way you would do that is you would say turn on, let's display other, and you would undisplay the existing and design. You would select this, and that way you had to come up here and choose this specifically to be that particular color. And then I'm going to go back to SiteNet, turn other off, and let's turn design on. And I would select everything on that that's visible now and change its color to, whatever, let's say cyan was my design. Then I would turn that off, turn existing on, and I would set this to be a color of green. So now when I display them all, turn design and other, you see they're now categorized by their category. The color shows their category, but I had to specifically set them using Civil. If I'm in construction or takeoff, it responds to that automatically. And then, of course, I can select everything and put their color back to by layer, which is their standard, typical way of doing it. Okay, so that's just a couple of the different ways of manipulating here with these different properties and different things that we're going to look at. So we're going to come back. We're going to take our lunch break here. We're running a little behind, but we'll get our full hour in. So when we are working within a drawing, particularly if you've got one that's very complex and a lot of different things, you can categorize things by what layers they're on. You can set all that kind of stuff up by color and excuse me, and then you can turn on and off those various categories, either, by the category of existing, design, and other, if you're using the SiteNet menu or the construction module under the takeoff menu, same thing with takeoff, or you can simply turn on and off, like you can freeze, or let's say I'm going to isolate that, whatever layer that's on, I want to isolate just that one layer. So I chose that icon right here, isolate layers. And so now it's only choosing that layer. Notice the circle went away because that was on layer 0. And that was not, even though it's part of existing, it wasn't this layer. This is just this particular layer. If I restore my layers, and if I then, if I wanted them both, I could say, select that layer and that layer. So now it's frozen the other two layers, and these are the only two on, and I can look at that in my layer list And I see these are all frozen except for that final and 0. So there's final and 0. So they're the ones that are on. So I'm going to restore my layers now. And those are just some easy ways of doing that categorization. You could also simply come in here, select your layers, tools, and let's say I want to, if I want to freeze this, I have to not be current. So I'm going to sit here on layer, well, let's sit on layer def points. So if I want to freeze my layer 0, which was that circle up here, you see it froze. And let's freeze that layer final. So I'm just going to click those individually by layers. There's my takeoff layer, which is also frozen, but there's nothing on it. Or yeah, it was other. So you can do that individually, like individually by layer name. You can do it by picking one item on a given layer and multiple items, and all the layers that are represented will be isolated or restored, or you can freeze them. I'm going to turn them all back on. You can also do a freeze by pick. So if I freeze that layer and that layer, those two will stay on. So that's the same effect as if I had gone in here and selected this layer and that layer and chose that little snowflake instead of the sunball. You can turn them back on, you see, and they'll set back. So any of those ways are ways to help you sort of, isolate different things, to just work on a couple of things, and you don't want all the other mess in your way. Just isolate them and keep them separate. Okay, so that's probably a good place to take our break. You can, if you'd like, save your drawing if you've done some doodling. Don't need to. Nothing that we're worried about. We're talking about interface and all the different things that we're doing with it. So when we come back after lunch, I want to look at some of the draw commands, some of the things that you're going to need to know to draw certain entity types. And for instance, if I wanted to connect the ends of these two lines, if you don't have your entity snaps on, you might be tempted to say, well, I'm gonna get in real close and I'm gonna start right there, and then I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna, click right there. But if you keep zooming in, you're gonna see I didn't exactly connect that endpoint, did I? Same thing here. See, I missed it a little bit. So that's called entity snapping. And I'm going to turn that back on and show you how that works. I'm going to take that and I'm going to just hover over this red line. See how it snaps to that endpoint? And I'll do that same thing, go from here. And now it's connected. Okay, so we're going to talk about all those kind of tools and those snaps. And in fact, now with my snapping turned on, now when I draw that line, all I have to do is point near the end. See, it's picking up midpoint, endpoint. So the end of that line and the end of that line, and it snaps to those particular points. That's very important when you're doing this stuff, because certain lines have to be connected for them to work correctly. Okay, so you can even do things like if I join, it's not going to join because of the elevations. If I join nearest, and let's turn off that. I say this, this, and this. Why? Oh, sorry, one more trip. Turn off this as well. And this. So take this one, and this one. And since they're connected, they're now all part of that. It's a 3D polyline. And
Yeah, there we go. The line types all work out. So, so there's a case where if you needed to connect something together, they have to exactly hit on those corners. Okay, so that's why entity snapping is going to be important. So we'll put a bookmark in things here. We'll come back and we'll talk about some of these tools to help us draw with, some of the editing commands, and just get familiar with the interface a little bit further. And then we're going to talk about sort of mid-afternoon, some of the settings that we need to know to make these things work a little better for our purposes. All right. Any particular questions so far? Pretty straightforward. Everybody good?
Yeah, Matt and I don't have that SiteNet tab.
No, that's only under civil. The SiteNet is what SiteNet does is it gives people who only have civil access to that takeoff set of commands. Like you have the takeoff menu,
Yeah.
you're under construction, so you have this takeoff menu now. See where you define layers and you set layers. And right down here are the two big workhorses: make existing ground, make design surface. Okay, those are the two things that you typically do there. Now in civil, see, I don't have that particular thing, but under takeoff, see, I have make existing, make design. And that has to, you have to set the layer, just like we did before, where we said certain things were existing, certain things are design, everything else is other. And so that tells it what to go out and use to try to build the surface. Now, what we're going to do, though, in our work, because of civil, we're not going to use that particular thing. We're going to use under the surface menu this triangulate and contour, in which case, once you did all that, you would go through and then pick the things individually that you want to, let me get that one, that you want to be part of that surface. And then when you run through it all, it will make a surface out of the things you selected. So surface modeling, where you very specifically choose the items, compared to the construction module under takeoff or civil under SiteNet, that lets you define these two conditions, existing or design, based on layer membership, and you don't have to pick the items. It's already pre-picked. Yes, Doris, you have a question.
So I was trying to see if I can see when you were saying about takeoff. In my case, I tried to click in both of them and do not show in the top what you're saying, basically when it changed close to surface
Yeah.
that it appears sometimes next to it, that takeoff that you were saying. I couldn't see it in any other options.
Yeah,
Did I have to click it?
yeah, so you're not seeing this, right?
Yes, correct.
Because I am in, if you look right up here at the tippy top, I'm in construction. Okay, so I chose this little icon, the same as if I did settings, Carlson menus, and I chose construction. You don't have the construction module installed, so you aren't able to see that. You have civil. And so that's when you up here, there's no takeoff beside it. So when you build surfaces, you're going to use this triangulating contour, or you could go to SiteNet, and this gives you a subset of the same commands. If you look at this SiteNet, you see define layer, displays, boundary polyline, the area of interest, make existing, make design. That's available to you through SiteNet, but through the construction module guys, it's on their takeoff menu. See, there's your define, set layers, and you and also display. There's where they display their various things. But there's your make existing, make design. But the key component that SiteNet gives you as civil and also these takeoff guys is this calculate these total volumes and these material quantities as well as costing reports So you can define materials to cost, stone costs, I don't know, $25 a ton, whatever it is. Those numbers out of the air. I have no idea. But once you do that and you define what everything does, it goes through the drawing and finds all of that stuff and adds it up and gives you a report for that. Okay. So that's the power of using that takeoff in civil. I mean, not in civil, takeoff in construction or in the takeoff standalone, which is this guy, which is what Dave has. Let's just turn my display back on.
What happened if I had it installed and I do not know? Where should I probably
Yeah,
see?
where you would see it is, let me see here just a second. I want to, I don't want to. I want to display. Doris, let me ask you, put your hand down.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
Oh, oh, I was able to do it. I didn't think I was able to do it. Here, it was hiding behind here. So if I display existing display design and display other. All right, so I've got everything on here now. So yeah, so under the takeoff module, the standalone, he's got all of this stuff here. Again, there's that make existing, make design, same thing that you have under, and I'm going to minimize that, under civil. Now I'm in construction here. So if I switch back to civil, I can pick it from this toolbar, or I can go from here, Carlson menus, civil, and then now I would have to do things through the SiteNet menu. Now, back to your question is, how do you find where or whether or not something is installed? As simple as this. If you go to settings,
Yes.
Carlson menus, choose any one of these. Now, if I go to survey, I'm going to switch and I see that my menu's changed, and this up here at the top, it's switched. But if I go to something like, what do I have? No, I've got geotech. I'm trying to find one that I don't have. And nope, looks like I've got them all.
Yeah. So I have a question. If you want to install in that case for takeoff, and you do not have besides the civil, you don't have construction, that is something that you have to basically talk to Carlson and they will kind of like to buy that part, or
yeah, or any Carlson dealer. And if you guys, I don't know, wherever you buy your software, and you could certainly talk to Mike Sobel at MSoft, where we're doing the class. That's his side of that company, is he does all the sales and stuff. So what I'm unable to show you here is that here's one. Let's see, underground mining. So if you choose settings, Carlson menus, and choose one, you'll get this down here at the bottom. It'll tell you it's not installed.
Okay.
So it's not installed. Now, here's a nice thing about doing this. Let's say you wanted to add construction to your product line. Or let's say you do a lot of survey work and do a lot of stuff with deeds. Well, there's no deed tools in civil or anything else other than in survey. If you wanted to add that particular functionality, all you do is you either get with Carlson or your dealer or with MSoft, and you say, I want to get this module. And what they do is they will issue you a new serial number that you register. And what that will do is unlock those modules. So they are technically right now already installed on your computer. You just can't get to them because your serial number is not licensed to run that module.
Run it.
So
Okay.
that's all it is just a switch, and it opens that up for you. Okay. So
Okay.
now again, you know, you could use that, and maybe there's some additional tools. Maybe that's going to be really helpful for your workflows, and it might be. And a lot of people will do that. They'll have construction, but they'll also bring in civil, because let me switch back to construction. See, I've got roads, I've got road network, I've got these center lines and profiles, but I don't have, see, this is all I have for center lines is right through here. All I have for profiles is right through here. And then I have cross sections right through here. But I do have road network, which gives me access to all of it anyway through the network. But a lot of people with construction will also buy civil, and I'm going to switch to civil now. And I can see under centerline, I've got a lot more centerline tools. Under profiles, I got a lot more profile tools. And under cross sections, you see I got a lot more cross section tools. So a lot of times they'll do that. They'll get construction, and maybe they find that they do a lot of survey work as well. And even though they have a survey menu, this is all you have under survey, and you don't have any of the deed processing tools. And maybe you got a survey department that wants them. So they'll buy survey and add to it. Okay, but this does give you some stuff like draw field to finish and inversing and coordinate geometry stuff. You know, you've got a subset of it included, but if it's not enough and they want to add it, so they'll just add survey. And then if they want to use that, they just switch to that particular tool set. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now,
Yeah.
you bet. So now here's the deal. You're going to get a 5 minute or 4 minute now bonus. So we're going to put a bookmark here, and we'll come back at the top of the hour. So you'll get 4 extra minutes there because we're running behind, and you guys are been very valiantly patient. I appreciate that. And so we'll come back and pick this up on picking up some drawing tools and how to manipulate the drawing. Okay. So again,
Perfect.
I'm going to stop my share, and I'm going to pause the recording. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we go ahead and open up. It can just be a junk drawing, doesn't need to be anything particular. And we're going to go out here and draw a couple of things. All right, so we're going to use a couple of tools here that we've got on our draw menu. So there's several things that you need to be aware of. When you're working with Carlson software, first of all, the CAD system itself, the DWG file itself, the drawing, it can consist of a number of different elements or entities. You can have points, and that's not to be confused with a survey point, like a Carlson point. We'll talk about those later. But those do contain CAD points as well. But you can have a point, you can have a line, and you can have a circle or an ellipse, which is really a circle is just an ellipse where both axes are the same length. And those are the basic things that you can have with things in your drawing. Point, a line, and a circle / ellipse. Now, what you do, if I click on that particular item, I can see that in fact, I'm going to get rid of some of these. Let's do that one more time. All right, we'll leave that as that. So when I click on this thing, you see it lights up the entire figure because I joined this bottom one, this connector, and this upper one together as a single entity. And that's what's known as a polyline. And that means that it is a drawn piece of geometry that has a bunch of elements all connected together. Okay, so so that's a polyline. Now, you can do this. If I draw a line and I just go here to here and here to here, and then I'm going to come back here and I snap to that endpoint. But when I look at that, that's a line. That's a line. That's a line. That's a line. That's all separate things. I'm going to select all four of these, and I'm going to right click and choose copy. And I'm just going to move it over to here. Now I can turn this into a polyline by doing several commands. It will show you some examples of that. But the other thing is I could have drawn this figure. If I wanted that figure to be all one continuous thing to start with, instead of drawing a line, I would draw a polyline. So I would draw, and a 2D polyline is set at a constant elevation, usually 0, not always. Contour lines are a good example of 2D polylines, but at a specific elevation. 3D polylines go from whatever you show it as the XY location, it also gets an elevation. So it can go up and down in space, in and out of the screen. So let's just draw a 2D polyline. And I'll put it on this same layer. And I'll just draw something that looks sort of similar to that. Now, when I select it, the whole thing gets selected, as opposed to when I select this, only the one thing gets selected. And if I click, 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 I can get all four pieces together. Okay, now the benefit of having this as a polyline, let's say that this point needed to be down here somewhere. So if I get that grip on, I select it, I hover the mouse, I get in the grip, and I stretch it down here. Notice that both this line and this line change with it because that's all one entity. If I try it here and grab that grip down, you see it only moves that one. So what we could do to turn that into a polyline, if it's drawn with all individual lines, is we need to join them together. And there is a particular command called pedit. That's the standard polyline editing command from CAD. And I'm not even sure where they have that one. Let's see. And this is the standard CAD command. See, this I don't use a whole lot of these standard commands much anymore. I just use, oh, here it is, right at the very first. So polyedit or pedit, you see right here on the command line, it's running this command called pedit. It says select a polyline to edit. So if that's this one, see, it says the entity selected is not a polyline. Do you want to turn it into one? I'll say yes. And so now that is a polyline. These other three are still lines. But what I can do then is to come down here and choose join. And it says select the entity, so I can pick individually or do a crossing right to left, get all of them, hit enter. And now I choose exit down here. And now when I select it, it is just like this one. It's all one entity. And now when I move this down, they both go with it. Okay. So the so what I'm getting at is a lot of things that we draw, roadway alignments, a sewer layout, a boundary of a parcel of land, things like that that's usually one figure. We want that one figure, a contour line that goes all the way across the map site. We want it from start to finish as one single entity. So a lot of things we want to turn into polylines. Now, if I look at this, and I look up here in my properties now under circle, I see that that's a circle. If I select this, its properties tells me it's a polyline. Okay, so that's what we've got, some different things. If I look at this one, it's a line. If I select multiple things, it says I've got 3 things selected and I could choose, any particular one. Let's say, let's grab the other one. And now I've got 4 things and I've got 2 polylines. I've got a line and a circle. So if I choose the line, even though these others are selected, I'm just looking at that line. I'll change its color. Let's make it red. Okay, I could jump down and change all and put their colors back to, say, bilayer or whatever. Okay, so the reason we typically want to use polylines like this is because we're going to be working on the entire feature as it goes across the drawing. And there are certain AutoCAD commands, or I'm sorry, certain Carlson commands that require it to be a polyline. So even though this might represent that same shape that we had over here before, something like that, even though it looks the same, the command wouldn't work on this because these are all individual lines. Now, lines can have, as part of its properties, notice down here, there's a starting X coordinate position, a starting Y, and a starting Z, and ending Z. So they can be 3-dimensional. They are not 2-dimensional by nature. But if you don't tell it in elevation, it just assumes the current elevation, which was 0 in that case. Now, so the upshot of what we're talking about here is that usually anytime I draw anything, like even if all I'm going to draw is, say, a line that went from, this manhole to that manhole, I can do it with a line because it's just one segment. It's not really. What I always do is, like, I can't tell you the last time I ever really drew a line, but I want everything in Carlson to be a polyline. So even though it's just one segment, I chose to draw a 2D polyline, and it's a polyline, even though it's just one piece. It doesn't have to be multiples, but it can be, it has the properties of a polyline. If you look at these properties, they're slightly different than these properties. See, I don't have a start Z and end Z for polyline. I've got an elevation because it's constant throughout all of the different vertices. And that's what these things are called, by the way. These corner points are called vertices. That's plural for vertex. So you can see I can stretch, I can add a vertex, remove a vertex. I can convert that to an arc, different things I can do with this individual. If I come up here and say add a vertex, I'll come up, put a vertex here. I'm going to hover. I'm just hovering the mouse and choosing how to manipulate that. Okay, so a lot of these manipulations you can do straight on the entities themselves, but making things into polylines. So get in the habit of making everything you draw a polyline. And there's even an instance, let's say if we've got, I'm going to draw a polyline. And I'll match this. And say if I went like that, and let's say I wanted to make this, I'm going to select this as my cutting edge. I'm going to right click the mouse and choose trim, and I'm going to trim out where it crosses. So let's say I wanted to make this very simple case. I wanted to make this into a roundabout for a traffic circle. I come into it here and I go around the circle and I go out, any other legs, that kind of stuff. But this is still a circle. Now, a polyline, if you remember up here, I turned that into an arc. So you can actually have a polyline. Let's see if I can manage to do it graphically here. That is well, can't really get rid of that bump. Let me move this one out. Anyway, a polyline can be two arcs that go around and make a circle. For instance, if I draw this 2D polyline, I start here, but I want to make it an arc. And so I want to go, let's go straight up here. I'm going to lock my ortho. And I'm going to go back to arc. All right, so that basically is a circle, but you see it knows it as a polyline. This, however, is still a circle. So what you need to do if you wanted to turn that into an alignment is like if I tried to say center line, polyline to centerline file. See if I give it a name here. If I choose that, well, that's okay. That one would work. And then if I did it again, if I choose this, all right, so they fixed that. It used to be that yeah, it sure did. All right, well, it used to be you had to convert that to a polyline. And you would do that under Edit, Polyline Utilities, and you change entities to polylines. So you would choose that. And now when it's selected, it is a polyline. It's made up of a start with an arc and an end. And then the next segment is another arc that comes back around to its starting point. Okay, so you want to try to keep almost everything you draw line-wise is going to be a polyline, either 2D or 3D. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the draw tools that we have. And here's on my menu. I use this one all the time, 2D polyline, draw a 3D polyline I use quite a bit. Here's circle with the center radius. And notice there's a little black arrow at the bottom corner. So if you press and hold, you get these other options. Okay. So there's a circle with radius and tangents, convert an arc to a circle with 3 points, for instance. I'll give it a point here. Let me turn this back off. A point here and a point wherever there. So there's those 3 points made that circle. Okay. So those are some of the draw tools over here. You've got here where you can draw individual symbols. You choose that and you can set a particular symbol. You can select from a group of these points, standard points, all kinds of different symbols. There's different categories here. You can have trees. And you can see there's just all kinds of different trees, inlets and manholes. You get the idea. Okay, map symbols. 3D things. If I go to signs, I've got 3D signs. I can actually put in a 3D sign there. Now that you're looking straight down on top of it. And I'm going to do a little something here. See, I can roll that up like this. And I can even turn that into, the shading. So there's now that nice little 3D stop sign. Okay. I'm going to change my view back to wireframe. And I'm going to come back here and click on this top. So I'm in plan view. I'm looking straight down on the drawing. Okay, so those are all the different things to do. Here's a plain circle. Just pick it and you can 3.2 point or tangent radius. Same as up here on these different options as well. draw sequential numbers. If you're doing, say, lots in a subdivision, we'll start with 101. And we'll give it a lot dash. I'll say here and say maybe we put a lot in like that. And then maybe we had another one here, another one here. So you see it's incrementing those individual numbers. So try your hand at a bunch of these different things. Down here, some leaders, some text. So this is sequential numbers. There's not one for a specific text. There it is over here on this toolbar. That's my IntelliCAD draw command. If I want to draw text, I'm going to go up to my draw menu and choose text. And I've got some of these here. Now notice they have icons, but it's on a different menu than the draw, or a different toolbar. So if we did multi-line text, for instance, I'm going to come here to my help command search, and I might type multi-line. There's multi-line text. It's on the draw, and it's on a text toolbar, a Carlson text toolbar. So if I turn that one on, toolbar Carlson, and I come down here and find text. So if you find yourself using text a lot, you can have that toolbar out there where you can draw text wizards, standard draw, it's sort of like it's all the tools that you could use. Here's just a standard text. Pick the style, edit existing text. For instance, I could do that. And it lets me change that to say, 109. And then these are, you can line them up, all these different tools. Or if I say line them up vertically, respace clear the overlap, sure. And then let's get the rest of these. So now they're all just lined up vertically. Do that. So a number of different tools here. You can move, flip, change. Now here's where we would actually draw. There's standard draw text. So we pick a point, we give it a style, give it a height. We'll take the defaults, rotation angle. Okay, so now these are individual pieces of text, and I can do, various things with them. I can rotate it. So they're both rotating because they were both selected. Okay. Well, these are just standard CAD type of tools. But since I don't do a lot of work directly with text editing like that, I do most of my text work under the annotate menu where you're going to label things. For instance, another piece of property, and if I go to auto annotate, there's my figure, okay, with bearings and distances. And you can change it to where they're all on the same side and do different kind of things. Now, watch what happens when you do this. If you select this, grab this corner, let's move it down here. Keep your eye on the text. See, it recomputes and relabels it. That's why I don't really do much in terms of just drawing text. I let the computer do it for me. So if I had something like this, it's going to recompute and redisplay those variables. Now that's controlled by a setting. We're going to talk about these settings a little bit ad nauseum here in a little bit. So, play around with some of the draw tools there and see. And if there's something like on the draw text, look on the draw menu if you don't see stuff, and you'll see text has a whole system. There's a lot of those things from the toolbar, but you can draw standard text. Now, remember, I drew that individual pieces of text, but there's also multi-line text, and that can be, this is multi-line text that will word wrap. It also lets, whoops, let me get this out of the way. Lets me hit, lets me hit enter. Line 3, line 4. Okay, so now when I finish, I'm going to say up here, I'm going to say checkbox to say, okay, now that is its own single entity, just like we saw a polyline versus a line versus, say, that piece of text and that piece of text, which are two separate entities. So this is now a multi-line text. Now, remember how this word wrap worked. If I select this and drag it over here, so now it's wide enough to where those lines didn't wrap. And you can make it bigger if you need more lines, that kind of stuff. If you grab the corner, that'll do that same type of thing. So if I pull this back and shrink it down, notice it wraps to fit that box. Okay, so that's a nice way to make some notes in your drawing, that sort of stuff. All right. So like I said, play around with that, see how this annotation works. Now this annotation, even though I could have labeled it, I could have done an inverse from here to here. And I see down there, it's a bearing north 48, 47, 48 east, and it's a horizontal distance of 120.178. So there's your 48, 47, 49 northeast, 120.18. See, I could have done that, written that down on a piece of paper, typed it in, and drawn it up here to try to line up this thing. But I used the annotation tools. I did that auto annotate. And that was the same thing as I did, let's see, angle and distance. And I did a bearing distance. And you see the little picture, there's a bearing over a distance. That's what that one was, or a distance over a bearing. And you can put them all on the same side, like bearing and distance. And if I do that, if I pick that, you see how it switched that around. Now notice it took out the old ones and redrew them and put them up here. This, however, is nothing more than a piece of text. Now this is a multi-text because it had that multiple thing in it. Whereas this one is just plain text. No, it's actually multiple line text as well. Okay, but it just has a single line in it. But likewise, you could you can change its width and all that kind of stuff to make it shrink up and wrap and that kind of stuff. All right, now, so a couple things happened is I've redone, and you see how these change to match the new configuration. And it also erased those previous ones here and redrew the new ones here. Those are controlled by settings. And for instance, on that particular settings under annotate, I've got my annotate defaults. I go to the menu, go to annotate defaults. And right here's where I said previous labels erase, or you can keep them, or you can have it ask you if you want to erase the previous ones if you're going to redraw them. We usually want to have them erased and redrawn. Okay, but that gives you the options to keep them there if you wanted them. Like if I were to change that. Now, what happens is whatever that is set on at the time this was created is going to change it. So if I were to change that default to, instead of erase, let's say to prompt before erasing, and now if I go back to annotate, and this time let's do where was my angle distance? Here it is. This time let's put it underneath. Let's pick this one. Now you see it's prompting me down here if I say yes or if I say no. So if I say no, there it is. And the reason you might want to do that as a surveyor, for instance, let's say you've drawn this according to the deed calls. Okay, so you annotate it and you leave those in there like the deed calls. In fact, I have to do this with these settings done first. All right, so if I take this and I say, fill, okay, let's see. Oh, I have to call her back. I'm teaching, so it'll go to voicemail now. So if I say prompt before erasing, that's fine too. And I'm going to go to another setting under settings, Carlson configure general settings. And right here where it says link line work or link labels with line work, I'm going to turn that off. Okay. So now here's my figure. I've typed it in here according to the deed itself. Okay. And so the deed might have had a different bearing or whatever. So I'll go to auto annotate. I'll auto annotate this figure. I'll select that. And now there it is. Now the difference, because I unlinked that labels with line work, when I do this, it doesn't update. Okay. So the reason that you might want to have something like that done, and also, let's see, let me put these all on one side here. Let's do auto annotate. And this time we'll put on the angle. Okay, so that should work like that. If I set that. All right, so they're now all on the, well, that's on the outside, so I need to flip. Well, let me see. Let me just move these. I'm just going to move it down here. All right, so these might be representing my deed bearings and distances. Okay, so now what might happen is maybe this is according to my deed description. But out in the field, I found a point, it wasn't exactly right there. It was like maybe just a wee bit, to the inside here. So it's a slight different distance. Same thing here too, maybe come up here like just somewhere out like that. So it's close to the same, but maybe my field found points made that different. And let's say I'm going to put that on a different rotation. So now you see it's going to be like that. Okay. So I rotated everything, and that is the original. Now, see, that line is not north 49 or north 59 east. It's going to be a southeast bearing of some sort. So now, if I do this, and I go back to annotate, and instead of auto annotate, I'm going to put these all, let's see, under. I want bearing and distance under. So I'll choose this one. And it says delete existing labels. I'm going to say no. And I'll do this one. Say no. And then I'll change it to that other to be above it. And I'll say this one. And then this one. Okay, so you see my distances are slightly off. My bearings are way off, you see, but they're not. So what I would do is I might, change this text to add on the end. I might say something like, let's copy that. Do the same thing here. Go out to the end. All right, so you see, you might mark it like that so that the reader of your map now knows that, hey, all right, those were the deed calls, but that was done back in the 1800s, and they had just a compass on a stick, and they didn't have the bearing exact, so you would get these different numbers and different distances slightly around. And so these are the ones by survey, these are the ones by deed, you could do those kinds of things. So that's how you would want to control that stuff. Now, I normally have mine to just automatically erase. And I also have my settings, Carlson configure, general settings, link labels with line work, so that when I do that in the future, it automatically updates. Now, you're going to see this is not going to automatically update because the linking was off at the time that was done. Okay, but if I go back to auto annotates this figure, you see what it did? It got rid of those other ones there because I had changed my defaults to be erase, and it knew that it had been done previously. Okay. I'm going to put that bearing back on the second line, or not row 1, but below. So bearing distance, there we go. And so now if I auto annotate one last time, you'll see it go back to the way we had it before. And if this should change, it's back automatically updating. Okay. So that's some of the power of letting Carlson do the work for you, because it can read that. You don't have to try to figure that out and calculate it and type the text in. It's going to do all that stuff for you. Now, that same thing would happen if I were to, let's do an area by closed polyline, single area, that's fine. We'll select this, and it's right there. There's my area. If I select this, notice that updated as well. Okay. And you see this label flipped around, so it's not upside down. So if I take this one and bring it here, you're going to see it flip again where the bear, so it all reads correctly. Okay, follow that, how that works? Now, so that's some of the draw commands that we're going to be using. We're going to draw polylines and 3D polylines. And if I had a 2D to a 3D polyline, let's say if I take this one figure and let's copy that. So I'm going to right click and choose copy, or choose copy over here. Just a standard CAD command. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to turn that into a 3D polyline. So under construction, you would look under elevate, and you would say this polyline elevation editor. If I'm under civil, I would go to 3D data and say polyline elevation editor. I'm going to choose this. And now it's going to pop up this little thing. It's all And here, where's my? Yeah, I'll get some settings. What's going on? Label non-control points. There we go. All right, let me read that, edit that polyline. So that should give me. Come on, where's my stuff? There's something is not. All right, so that's turned into a 3D. There's vertex 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm just in the properties here. I've selected it. And let's say vertex 1, I'm going to give that an elevation or a vertex Z. Let's call it 100. I'll go to the next vertex up here and let's make that an elevation of 90. Go one more. We'll make that an elevation of, let's say 105. And we'll make this one an elevation of 95. And then if you go back to 5, notice there's a point, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It has that extra vertex. So I need to make that match the same as elevation 1, which was 100. So I'll go back to 5. There we go, 100. So everything's done. Now that, it looks exactly the same as that. Now when I edit that with my polyline editor, that's what I was looking for. It was not showing me those individual pieces. All right, but there it is now. The way I can tell that that has elevation is to look at it in a 3D view. So does everybody have this up here in the upper right corner? Do you see that, like that little picture?
Yep.
Okay, let me see something here.
Are you doing it by yourself again?
Say that again.
Oh, not me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot your
Oh.
plan.
Oh, okay. All right, so if you've all got this little picture, this is a little
Okay.
a little graphic you can use to change your perspective of your view. Right now I'm looking straight down on it in top view and north is up to the top. If you change these angles, you're still looking straight down on it, but you're rotating it around the corner and you can highlight individual edges. So if I get to this corner point here and click there, you see I've got, I'm looking at it from that perspective. If I look at it from the left, there's down at 0, here's these other ones. And if I go back, let's go back here till I see top, and now I'm back to my top view. All right, so I can use that to sort of make my way around it, but there's a shortcut that you can use as well. If you hold the shift key down with your left hand and then press and hold the wheel on your mouse, and now push it up while you're holding it down, you can get that and rotate that around to any way you want it to see it and get a different perspective on that view. Then when you let it up, it's now you've changed that orientation. You're no longer in plan view. You've got this icon on down here. Yes, Doris.
So, can you repeat again?
Yeah.
So, okay.
So here I am in my top view. Okay, so I can use this little cube to sort of change my viewpoint around, or I can hold the shift key on the keyboard and press and hold the wheel on your mouse. You got a wheel in between the two buttons, right?
Yes, I had.
Yeah, so press that and hold it and keep everything held down and then just push the mouse around.
Probably is not working, so that is why I do not see it.
When you
I'm
hold,
trying to do it.
when you hold shift and do this, you don't get that rotation.
No, I don't.
Huh.
So I don't know if something for the setup that is not allowing me to do it.
Perhaps. Let me take a quick look at this.
I did notice that I have some settings that are not in, at least in Carlson configuration,
Uh-huh.
like you did. So I don't know if that is the reason
No,
or
being
basically
that,
what I'm
yeah,
looking for.
this is just pure CAD. Let me see if I can find where that would be. It's the middle mouse button. It's the, that's not that. All right, on yours.
It's way handier.
All right, if you, first of all, when you roll the wheel on the mouse, you get zoom in and out. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. I can do that.
Okay, so if you press and hold the mouse button and then move the mouse, does that slide it? That's called panning.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so you get that. But
Yeah.
if you hold shift down and hit right click the right mouse button, do you get this menu?
If I click the right, let me see. Just the right, do not let me. No.
So if you hold shift on the keyboard and keeping it held down, you click the right button, you don't get this.
No, when I click in the right one, it appears like I can select stuff. When I click the left one, it appears basically delete, move, and all that, and go back.
Oh, sounds like your buttons are mapped backwards.
Oh, okay.
All right, if you hold the shift key and press and hold the right mouse button, do you get, I'm sorry, press and hold, no, that's the middle button. Hold the shift key and press the left button. Do you get this?
Not those, but I do look, move, copy, delete, and all that.
So you get this.
Yes, correct.
But if you hold the shift key down, you don't get these other ones.
Yes, correct.
That's a CAD configuration thing. Let me see if I can find where it is. All right, so if I go to settings, IntelliCAD, I'm gonna go settings, IntelliCAD options. And I've got a series of tabs, and I'm gonna go to user preferences. And if I choose mouse settings, if I click that,
It show the same thing as you do.
it says show shortcut menu and show shortcut menu there, right?
Yes, correct. And use mouse will ribbon tags. So yeah.
All right, so that's not coming up from that. Let me see.
Oh, something that I have displayed hidden like tulips. It is click in there in my configuration.
Under display, you have what? Show tips?
And under use preference. Displayed hidden link top tool. Let me see. Tool tips. It was showing that I had a click in there.
Yeah, now that's generally what I've got under display where it says show tooltips.
Mm-hmm. Let me see. Show. Checking if it is the same thing that you do have. Yes, it does.
But you've also got show tooltips in here. All right, do this for me. Cancel that. Go to your help system and go all the way to the bottom and choose about Carlson.
Yeah.
And down here in this box, what version? Carlson 20 what?
It says Carlson 26.
Okay, well, that's fine there. Then go to help and choose about IntelliCAD. And it should give you right up here at this top line, you should see like a 13.1 or whatever that is. What's your number?
You're saying in where in
Go to help and choose about IntelliCAD.
okay.
It should say right up here at the top, IntelliCAD 13 or whatever.
I probably click in the wrong one. Like,
That's it. Just go to help all the way.
oh, okay, under bottom. Sorry, is that I have 3 screens for the class. So it's getting me a little bit crazy.
Okay.
Okay, so it says 13 at the end. It is the same numbers.
Yeah. Okay. So that's not different. What's different on your keyboard?
I don't know.
Let me give me a quick second here.
Is she moving her mouse when she does it?
Yes, I'm moving I'm
Well-
moving the mouse or moving. The only thing that I can think of that is close to tops, whereas all the kind of like a house and everything is when I click under it. They have kind of like a triangle.
Yeah.
No, that the other one that right in the yes, that one, correct. So
Yeah.
and it says the same thing as you do.
Yeah. So that shouldn't affect that. What we're trying to do, let's see. If your IntelliCAD shift key isn't working, being reassigned to another function on certain laptops or a misconfiguration of CAD shortcuts. Yeah, okay. Do you know what kind of computer do you have? What brand, and is it a laptop
Is it HP?
and is it a laptop?
Yes, it is a laptop.
Okay, so that's probably what's happening. If you look at this right here, some Dell, HP, and Samsung assign a separate function to the shift key. Okay, and that can block AutoCAD from receiving that shift key press. So it might be for touchpad gestures or media controls, that kind of stuff. And so, you can enable temporary auto assist or bypass. No, let me see. Redefine the shift key shift, but avoid the conflict. Now look at type CUI. Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to stop my share and I want you to share your screen.
Okay. Let me share it. My third screen. Sorry. I was trying to figure it out which one. So this is the one that I have.
Okay, good. Okay, go back to that screen.
For which one? That one?
Oh, no, okay, I've got it here. Okay, so here it is. Now I'm going to oh, are you running this in the you're you're running this in just the web browser interface, or are you running?
Yes.
Okay,
In
so
the browser.
yeah, so I can't control your screen.
Oh. Okay.
That's all right. I was going to try to take a look at it. Now let's see. All right, go back to share your screen again. All right, now let me find what I was looking at here and talk you through this. All right, so now under down here at your command line, type the letters CUI for custom user interface.
Here. Okay. What should I type? Sorry.
CUI. stands for custom user interface. Hit enter. And now if that's on your other screen, drag it over to this one so I can see it.
If it is, oh, it didn't show. Oh, there you go.
Now, we want to expand keyboard shortcuts, temporary override keys. So if you find, I don't see keyboard shortcuts. Yeah, keep scrolling that down and see if you find the upper section.
Oh, the upper.
Yeah, there's no keyboard shortcuts.
Mm-mm.
All right, that might be an AutoCAD only thing. Let me see. Well, all right, cancel that. And go back to your settings and choose IntelliCAD options. No, right there. Yep. Now there's your mouse settings under user preferences. And then if you, let's look under,
3D modeling.
no, let's look under system for just a second. Okay, let's see here. Region, nope, nothing there. Maybe drafting, but I don't think so. It's auto track, snap, underlays, nope. Yeah, it should be under user prep. Try the selection tab. That sometimes you can have that. All right, so noun verb selection, yep. Entity grouping, implied windowing, that's all good. So tips, so grid tips. No, I don't see. All right, cancel that.
I was seeing this that was really different from the one that you have. Basically, all the settings are
Yeah, your
different.
settings are not set the same as mine. Now we'll talk about that to get that set up. So, but we'll come back to that part later.
Okay.
So right now, I'm not sure how to set up that shift key. You've got a problem because it is running on that HP laptop. You can go ahead and stop your share now if you'd like.
Okay.
And I'll share back. Whoops. All right, so everybody can see my screen now.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so
Yep.
All right, so yeah, so instead of doing that shift and rolling around, that's a shortcut for some of the others to check on things. You can use this cube. You can just click on these corners and get a different view of how things work, and click back here, make back to the top. And if you get this all upside down and turned around and you don't know how to get back to it, just type the word plan, PLAN, at the command line and hit enter, and then hit enter once again, and it resets it back to plan view.
Mhm.
Okay, so if you wanted to view that in perspective, that shortcut, the shift key shortcuts are not going to work for you the same, because in the HP laptop setup, it's using shift to toggle something else. And we'd have to go into the laptop setup over in Windows and set up an AutoCAD exception and all that kind of stuff. And we don't really just have time to do all that right now. And I can't control your computer, so it's going to be hard to talk you through it. All
Yeah,
right, so
you're good. I will try to download the Zoom app in the computer to see if I can eventually do it.
oh yeah, if you do that when you, in fact, at the next break, which is coming up here soon. If you'll just exit the session, and then when you come back into it, it should offer to let you download the Zoom app.
Yes.
Then that will let me control your screen if you're using that app. But
Okay.
for now, it's
Sounds-
okay. Let's just move ahead and not worry about the shift key.
Okay.
So there's another way, and we're not going to go into the details right now. We'll do all this stuff, probably get a chance to do this tomorrow as we really get into the nitty gritty. But there is, under the view menu, under 3D view, this thing called drawing viewer. And that's really the preferred way of doing all of this stuff, even over that shift rotate. So if I look at that drawing viewer, and it asks me to now select entities, and it says select the entities for the scene. So select entities, I'll just grab everything and I'll hit enter, and it pops up this little viewer. It can be repositioned, resized, maximized, whatever. And now I'm still in plan view, but if I roll this thing around, you see I can do this same thing and, you know, zoom it in and out and do all this. And we'll learn all these tools a little bit later on when we look at that viewer in more detail. But that lets you see that as a view. You can also set your color by elevations on. See, reds are high, blues are lows, greens are mids. So you can get an idea of what those are. Let's see, what else can we do with that here as well? Yeah, so you can see it. You can also go under settings and put a bounding box. So you can see that, yes, indeed, it does fit, you know, within that frame. But you notice also, let me turn that box back off. You notice also, I'm going to come down and hit the plan view, but where's this other one up here? Remember? And that's right up here. This ignores zero elevations. And that's a very key concept for Carlson. So if I uncheck that, it shows back up. I check it on. It says, if it's zero elevation, don't show it to me. I only want to see things that have elevation. So that's another nice little way to verify some things. You can also do this. You select the 2D one. Well, no, they're both 3D now, but they're all zero. But if you, let me turn that back into a 2D. So now it's now it is just a polyline. Whereas if I select this one, I see up here that it's a 3D polyline. Notice the grips also. The grips on a 2D polyline have a little midpoint grip in between the corners. And if you hover the mouse over that grip, you can stretch that grip and it takes the whole thing up. And you can also, if you hover that's where you can like convert that to an arc, or you can convert it back to a line, do different things to it, and do that. Now with this one, you don't have that midpoint grip, so you can't do anything other than move these grips around. Now, another way to check something elevation wise, first of all, I see this and I see the midpoints. I know it's a 2D polyline. It's either at zero elevation or it's at some constant elevation. So I look at my properties over here and I see this elevation is zero, and that's probably what I want for that. Another way you can check these things is if you hover the mouse, don't click it, just hover over just sort of get on that grip and wait till it snaps in there. And then look down here on the bottom of the screen. You should see these coordinates, these drawing coordinates. And you see that says 4505.35, comma, 4664.02, comma, 0.00. That is the X, comma, Y, comma, Z position of that point. Now, if I look at it down here on this 3D one, see it has an X and a Y and it says 90 for the Z. click over here, that's 105. That should say 80 or 95. And then that should be back to 100, 90, 105, 95, back to 100. And that's down here at the bottom on the status bar. If you should not, does anybody not see that?
I do not.
All right, so what you
Okay.
want to do is come down here to the bottom and this status
Mhm.
bar, it's this bottom window, and you want to right click it. And here's all the different things that you can see down there. And the one that I have is called cursor coordinate values, the very top one,
Uh-huh.
or it might say running coordinates. I'm not sure what it might say. All right, who is that that's talking?
Dave.
Dave. Okay, so you're on the takeoff. So let me see on yours. So you down here don't see those coordinates. Yeah. All right. So you're going to right click. Oh, no, you're not going to do it there. You're going to come over to the far right and click that little menu there. And
Uh-huh.
now at the top, turn
Uh,
coordinates on.
Yep.
You
Got it now.
Okay, perfect. All right, so that's another way you can verify it. You can also select a 3D polyline, and in the properties, it will show you all the vertices. And if you click in that field, you'll get a marker on the one that you can see. And this little arrow just steps you through it. And notice as you do that, the vertex Z value changes. Okay. So that's going to be something future. Let me isolate. Oh, isolate these. So now if you look at something like, well, that's a little too, yeah, there we go. So here you got these, and if I look at my vertices, my vertices, and I step through them like this, but sometimes you'll see some figure like that that's just really, these are all pretty, there we go. See how close together they are? Like right in here, you see they're really close together, and you got to zoom in tight, and you can't really pick one to look at the vertex. And you just sort of have to step your way through them like that to look at those elevations. And you see how it's all changing because every bit of this stuff in here. Now, if I try that shift mid wheel, it doesn't work for you either. You get the same.
Yeah. I use the toolbar on the very right underneath the cube.
Yeah, that's another set of dynamic views that you can use. All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are just a way. But now like I said, I almost always do it like this, and I'll go to my view, 3D view. Where is it here? 3D views, 3D viewer window. And I almost always use this because I can
Uh-huh.
move that around, zoom in and out. I can give it a vertical exaggeration, just make it really noticeable, but I'm not changing the elevations of anything. I'm just exaggerating it in my viewer. Okay.
Right.
All right. So that's a really nice way to verify things as well. Now, I go back and restore those layers. All right. So now you're back to where that is. All right. Escape that. Let's put that down for a minute. And so anyway, that's the difference in what we've got here. We've got 2Ds and we've got 3Ds. Now, one thing I want to point out here as well, if I select these two things, they're both 2D and 3D polyline. I'm going to give them a line type of, let's say, hidden 2. I just lied to you. Let me see. Yeah, so normally a 3D polyline, I feel like I may have fixed that. So you've got a pattern line. Let me draw a 3D polyline here. Give it an elevation of 100. Go here, we'll make it 105. I'm going to say arc. Go here, and let's make it 95. And then extend. And we'll make that one back to 100. All right, so that's a straight line and the approximation of an arc, but it has multiple elevations along it. Now, notice when I have this where it's so tightly controlled, let me, oops. Yeah, so on this one, because it had, oh, wait a minute, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to try to match. Yeah, so it used to be that AutoCAD, when it was a 3D entity, could not display there's an example. The straight part, it shows the center line, but once you get into this, it doesn't display the line type. There's not enough room in between those points to show it, so it shows up like that. This had enough room, so you saw it. So that's one difference, whereas if I take a similar feature there that's a 2D polyline, I'll just approximate it here, and then do an arc. And if I make that into a center line type, see how the symbology goes through the curve, and up here it doesn't. So you'll sometimes run into that where the 3D lines, and it used to be that it wouldn't allow any even the straight parts, it would not be symbolized, even though you told it it's supposed to be this center line type. Okay, so that's another difference in the way those behave. No particular thing to worry about there. That's more visual than anything else. So, all right, so now you've seen a couple of things. We've got this 2D line or 2D polyline. We've got a 3D polyline, which is just like a polyline, but these corners have potentially different elevations. They could also be all at the same elevation, but it still would behave as a 3D polyline as far as its definition goes. All right, so again, we're going to be very polyline driven and polyline, 3Ds and 2Ds. And the 3Ds are going to be what we're going to use to draw brake lines and edges of parking lot, edges of, setting up things that have elevation on the ground. And then when we put those together and model them into a surface, you're going to see that turn into what that surface would be. For instance, if I did right here, let's just go to surface. I'm going to triangulate and contour. And I'm going to draw my contour intervals. Let's do a contour interval of 0.5. No, let's make it 0.1. And let's see if that will work for us here. Let me select this. Yeah. So you see that generated contours. Let me, Wanda, hush. All right, so if I do that again, let's maybe change that instead of 0.1 to just 1 foot intervals. There you go. Now, there's a reason you get all this jibber jockey going around is because of the way the triangle's formed. So if I draw the triangulation lines, you see that's how they're real skinny, and that's what's forcing this, and there's nothing else in between defining that. So that would be what the surface looks like. And in fact, if we were to look at that in our 3D viewer, you can see how that jumps up, because this point here is higher than this point here, but on the other end, that point's higher than that point. So those two lines are sort of seesawing in the direction they turn. That's why you get those jagged looking contours in that particular region. And we could have, let's draw this one more time. Let's draw it as faces so you can see the solid part of it. And now let's view it in 3D. See it. Yeah, there we go. So now you can see they're colored in. And if we exaggerate that, 5 times, you can see how they're rippled a little bit, because it starts low then high on this side, but over here it's high then low on that side. And so, and when you get something that looks like that, with these contours doing all this, there's a way to fix that. And there's a lot of people will do stuff like, they'll reverse the triangle direction and they'll try to edit the triangles, but that's not the right way. The right way is to try to figure out, well, what caused that? Well, maybe if I put lines across here, that would help define the interior space a little better. And I'll show you how that works real quick. I'm going to erase by layer. All right, so I'm going to draw just a 2D polyline from here to here. And then I'm going to select that, and I'm going to move it. I'm going to bring it down to like this. And I'm going to just make it go a little bit further outside the areas. And then I'm going to say, take this, and I'm going to copy it. Or I'm just going to do an offset, standard offset. By, let's say, what is this distance? All right, so if I offset by 10 feet, select this, I'll go here. Yeah, it wasn't exactly what I was going for, but let's see. Now, I'm going to trim. See if I can get fence to work. Now I've got to do it with this command. All right, there's my cutting edge. And now by fence. All right, I just did that to line them up here. Now, what I want to do is, because this has elevation, those lines don't, you see? So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to go up here to my 3D data and I'm going to say 2D to 3D. I'm going to turn those 2Ds into 3Ds and I'm going to do it by screen entities. So when I do that, it's going to, I'm going to say ignore zeros, it's fine. I'll say okay. And it says select the lines to convert. So it's going to be all of these. Now select the things to read. So it's going to read that. Now they're all converted and you can see I've laid those all in so that that helps define the middle of that figure better. And so now, instead of getting something like this, when I go to surface, triangulate, and contour, and I'm going to densify every 5 feet, that's fine. I'm not going to draw these, but I'll do the contours. So we'll do it now. Here's what we had originally. See those jags? All right, I'm going to erase by layer again. And now if I say triangulate and contour, and if I include those drawn cross lines, look at the differences in the contour. See how it smoothed all that jiggy-jaggy stuff out? I still got some stuff in here, so maybe if I had some lines going this way, it would also fix that. So if I erase by layer again, and if I just we draw a couple of 3D polylines, and I'm going to set my snap point to nearest. So let's draw 3D polylines. I'm not going to prompt for elevation. I'm going to let it read the elevation. I'm just come from here across. Let me see. I'll do a 2D. Now let's elevate those. So I'm going to select this and this as the ones I'm going to change, and I'm going to let it read everything. So now when I see it, you see it's all lined up there, and that's going to help redefine that. So when I triangulate and contour again, you should see that. I still missed something in there. Let me see. Might need to densify a little bit further in here. To get rid of this. That's because there's some triangles that are jumping across here that are weird. So there's various techniques that you can use to help your modeling of these surface parts. And then even if you did that, once we're doing with this, and this is what we'll get into tomorrow, is we triangulate and contour. Let's go ahead and save that as a file. And we're just going to call it junk. I'll get everything here. Okay, now let me erase those contour lines. And now if I look at my view, 3D view, instead of the drawing view, I'm going to look at a surface file viewer, and there's junk. And there it is with the triangles showing. Let me color the triangles in, and that's what it looks like. And I can turn on these contours, and there you see the same contours. Now I can change that contour interval to 2 feet or 0.2 feet or 0.1. So these are all being generated on the fly right inside this viewer, and I can see it. Now if I show my triangle edges, see right in here, these are the triangle edges that are sort of pulling this out of whack. So one of the edits that I can do with that is let's swap the 10 edge. So if I swap this edge direction, and this one. You see how that took that jag out right there? Same thing there. I'm not sure which one of those might be. It's probably the way it's supposed to be. Let's swip this one. Yeah. So a lot of people will do things like this to try to reshape their contour lines. And that's fine. And once you make those edits, you could save that file. But what I like to do is when I'm looking at a surface and I see some contours that just don't look particularly nice, and I know that there's a problem, maybe I need to put another break line in somewhere else, then what I'll do is, and we could actually do that here if we add, we add a break line. Let's see if I can do a break line from here across. I doubt it. No. I got to see these triangle edges. All right, so now if I wanted to go from, say, here, I think I've got too much. Yeah, there's too many things it's trying to cross. Anyway, I could do those type of edits and save it. But what I like to do is when I look at that and I see I've got a problem, I'm going to go back, not here to the surface once I've made and modified the surface. I'm going to get my shadows here. Let's get a little bit of that. Is what I like to do is I'll go back here and I'll fix the data and I'll rebuild the surface and I'll look at that. That's the preferred approach. That's how you really make sure that your data is all correct, because all the changes I made back in the viewer are just going to affect that file. They don't do anything here. So if I ever had to go back and remake this, it's going to, not pick up those changes. So in any case, now see, I had some crossing barrier lines. I see there's slight elevation differences that it found in here because it's trying to resolve how all these things cross. So, that's one thing you could fix if you needed. Let me see if I had. Skip 3 contours. All right, so it didn't have any crossings in there. All right, so there's one, so if I put a break line in from here across here to keep that from jibber jabbering across here, I have to go through and remove these other ones that cross it, because that's causing some of that problem. But anyway, that's not a very realistic surface model, but you can see how the process works and how the flows work. And we'll learn how to use those tools at some depth tomorrow. But for now, let's go ahead and take our mid-afternoon break. We've got about an hour left in the class, so let's come back at a quarter till, and we'll take that to 4:30, and a little over if we have some questions, things like that at the end, and we'll get that. But when we come back, I'm going to go to those settings and show you the ones that I have on and what effect they're going to have and what you should probably look at for yours as well. Okay. So I will stop my share and I will pause the recording.